3, 2, 1, and we are live to episode number 3 of The Journey Within.
What an exciting one, by the way.
Yes, and obviously you guys already know my dear friend Saman. I have a very, very special guest that I've been hunting down for a few weeks here to get him to come on this show so we can pick his brain, and a very, very special dear friend of mine and a guest of mine, James Maldonado. He is the what I like to call him the exception to the rule. In all reality, though, kind of give you a little bit of background about the guest today. So James is not 20; he's 44.
August 29th. So
44 years old. Yeah, which that mind-boggling how amazing this man looks.
Thank you.
I'm not gay, but
Give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, exactly. And besides that, besides the fitness aspect of it, which he's an absolute master of, he's spent decades at doing fitness and learning fitness, and obviously a big part of his life. And we're going to discuss, of course, today on this podcast. Another great expertise that he also has is in business. And he's been doing a business that I've been doing, which is mortgages. Obviously, he had his own company at the time, and multiple business that he's built, has multi-million dollars. Get an idea, over $10 million in his bank, cash over everything he's done, and he's living a life that is fully on his term. He does what he wants, when he wants, with as much as he wants, whenever he wants. And this is something that I'm working toward. He's been a mentor, great mentor of mine since I've met him. So I'm very, very thankful for you to be here. Very grateful to be here. And I'm very grateful, outside of the fact that the listeners are going to listen to, I'm going to learn a lot, because I have a lot of questions, and I very admire the way you look at life and the way you approach it.
And I think the first question was, how do I do it at 44?
Yeah, that's the first thing. How the hell do you look like this at 44 yeyears old? Very curious to know, man, because I'm trying to, whatever the method is, I want to use it.
Yeah, it comes down, and thanks for that introduction, by the way. It comes down to lifestyle. I think when you have a lifestyle of success, right, like that you expect more from yourself.
Talk to the mic a little bit more.
Is this good?
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
So I think it comes down to lifestyle. It comes down to how you structure your life and your day, and always becoming more relevant. The one thing that I've seen with people, I have a long history of seeing people go through cycles, right?
Right.
And they give up at some point in life. It's really interesting, because these are people that were very successful, whether it was, in high school, and, they had all the girls, or, they were very good athletes and stuff like that. But it's really weird is that there's a lot of people that get to my age, or even before, in their early 30s, and they quit. Something happened and they just quit, whether it was a failed relationship, whether it was a job that didn't work out, a career. There's just something that happened that they quit, and they stopped becoming relevant. And I think relevancy is the key to success, is to constantly create a new identity, in the sense of like new hobbies, new goals, and never looking back, man. People will say, well, what is it like with your looks? Do you get facials? Do you get Botox? Dude, it comes down to like my mental thoughts, is that every day I wake up, I know that that's going to be my best day. I'm never looking behind me saying,
that's amazing,
man, you know what? Like last, it was great in 2016. It was great. That was my heyday. I don't think that it's there yet for me. Every day is going to be a better day. Every day I'm never looking back. And I think when you have that perspective, and you're constantly reinventing yourself, and you're becoming more relevant in something.
Yeah.
That's that longevity.
So let me ask you this question, because I always look at fitness.
Yeah.
I look at it as a mental practice through this is my opinion, right? I look at fitness it's a mental practice.
Yeah.
Through a physical experience, not a physical practice that's mental.
True.
And what you're talking about right now, which is, it just kind of, a few things in my mind just clicked, which is about people stop being relevant. And at some point, and some people never even get started, right? They never even gone to this level to give up and go down from. how do you keep, like, how did you get that psychology? How did you create it? What are the principles that you use in your mind, and how you ritualize your life? Because I'm very curious to know, when you say perspective, what is the perspective, and how do we adopt that perspective?
Momentum. It's all about momentum. And, momentum could be achieved in the smallest thing. I make sure that I make my bed every morning.
We just talked about this and
did?
how important it is to do that.
And the thing is that, besides just the aesthetics of coming home to a nicely made bed will improve your day if, things were stressful or whatever. But the fact that you can have your first achievement right at the start of the day.
Absolutely.
And it's the weirdest thing. But, when people will say, I'm stuck in this rut, I'm dead. And I'll say, try making your bed for 30 straight days. Make your bed every morning. And it creates this little pebble of momentum, and it starts to go down the hill, and it just gets bigger and bigger as your day goes on. And I think that creating momentum is the key to then putting in, the ritual lifestyle, making sure that, you're on point with everything, and that, you're maintaining your relevance. But, there's a synergy between being relevant and then creating momentum. And in order to have some kind of relevancy, I found mine in fitness. I found it in business. I'm relevant, and you could do it in any kind of aspect. You could be, in the clothing industry, right? And you become relevant in there. You become relevant, and you could create a new one anytime that you want. You have that power, but you have to constantly be recreating momentum. And throughout the whole day, right? Things happen. And
so how do you do that? Give me some ideas. If I was to say, okay, I like that idea. I like the principle of it. How do I start adopting that? And how do I start? Where do I start? Outside of the bed, for example.
Yeah. I think that it starts with any kind of achievement, right? And that's why I use like the making of the bed, because it's just like you're creating momentum. You're creating an achievement. You got one victory. Before you even leave the door, you got one victory. And, it builds from there. But you have to create that lifestyle that goes along with momentum. And just like there's a synergy between being relevant and momentum, there's then a synergy between momentum and success, right? Because we see the people, they have no momentum. People will say, well, they're not successful. I say they don't have any momentum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't have any momentum. But that's the better part about it, is because you could create momentum at any time. There's no like, well, I don't know where to get it. Yeah, you do.
You don't have to wait for it.
You don't have to wait for it. You could create it.
So let me tell you, when you say momentum, how I'm looking at it, and tell me if I'm looking at it the right way. Because I really study like how the mind works, and how we adopt habits in our brain, and why it's sometimes hard to get rid of a habit, right, and adopt a new one, because of the pain and pleasure principles that you adopt from that habit, right?
Yeah.
So would it be, if I essentially change anything in my life, anything that, if I wake up, for example, every morning, and my habit is I want to jump into a cold shower, for instance. Someone's habit is maybe wake up, hit the snooze button a couple times, get up and go get a box of mini donut, right?
Yeah.
If I change one thing that I do on a day-to-day basis and loop out of the patterns that I've already created, like if my brain has a pattern of, okay, this is what I do every day, and if I loop out of it and create a new pattern in my brain, and I stick with that, is how I create some type of momentum. Is that correct?
Yeah, towards your goal. And I mean, there's steps to it. Obviously, you have to have a like a goal, right? Like, you want to be the top funder in your company.
Yes.
You want to have a clothing company that's, at this level that people recognize, so you have to have that goal out there, and now we're talking about a whole nother thing. And, I'm a big believer in writing things down, obviously,
big advocate. Yeah.
You have to, without that, they say, like, if you don't plan, you plan to fail, and it's the same thing. You have to have, your goals laid out, and I'm a big believer in, the things like, dream board, stuff like that. But then there's that dangerous part of it. Like, you think that if you're going to cut out pictures and put it up, that this is going to automatically happen? No, you got to have action.
Absolutely.
But I think once you have your goals identified, and you find the things that, in our pre-conversation, we used the word sustainable in a couple different words, or in a couple different meanings. And, your goals have to be sustainable. Some people focus on these like crazy goals where it's like, I want to be a billionaire and it's like, and the only way I could do it is like, I could be a stockbroker, right? No, there's so many different, you could do it in so many different ways, but if you're doing it in a way that makes you happy, then you're going to get there eventually, and you're going to get through the hard times. Cause I don't care what it is, man. If you got this like high profile job that's just like, but you're going to run into peaks and valleys, right?
Of course.
And the sustainability is going to be that passion that you have for it. So,
But if you're someone who doesn't have it, like they say, okay, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know. I have no idea what, like, let's say someone is watching this right now says, dude, okay, well, that's great, but I'm not passionate about anything that I know relevantly that I'm doing.
That's when discipline kicks in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. But, I think then there's a lot of self-reflection, because there is something, somebody could bring something out of that person. And if somebody's listening right now and they think, well, I don't know what I'm passionate about. Well, let's talk about it. So what, do you have debt? You passionate about paying that off? You passionate about money? You passionate about impressing, somebody that you like? You passionate about getting noticed when you walk into a restaurant or into a gym? You look good.
Yeah.
So it's more about having that conversation. Somebody think, yeah, you know what? Like, it'd be great to pay off debt, but I don't know how. I got a dead end job. They think, well, there's always an option, but so then money, then it could just be as simple as, you know what? I want money. Or I want this, I want to be able to have this lifestyle where, I got the beautiful girl and I get noticed because I put in time at the gym.
Having the significance technically.
Yeah. And, some people will say, well, it's too like servicey, but man, I think at the end of the day, you got, you just focus on being happy, and all that stuff will, if that's what brings you happiness, man, then more power to you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What I really enjoyed about what you've been talking about is there's a few key words that you keep on using. One of them is lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? You keep on talking about lifestyle, and then relevancy. You look forward to being the best version of yourself every single day, and you always look forward to tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
You are always redefining who you are.
Always.
What makes you want to do that, and what type of regiments do you have in place to keep you going within that system, right? Because you haven't broken yet, like you said. Many people that break or give up or fold. Yeah. You haven't folded, and what it sounds like to me is you're never going to.
Mm-mm.
So how do you keep that going, and how do you keep that sustainable, like you said too?
Yeah, I think for me, there's just like probably some weird innate thing that I have that like I don't want to ever be less than, to ever be seen as not relevant, or that people could just shit on you because it's like, you broke, or you have nothing outside of like just waking up and going to bed, so there's a level of self-respect that you have to have for yourself in order to achieve things, and a lot of it comes down to your own personal values. Like, man, I've been through so many different things in my life, and it could be things, I can remember when I was younger, and, in your guys' age, man, I mean, even though I went to college on a football scholarship, man, I was always in trouble. My life was not supposed to be where it was. I went to, count it 1, 2, 3, 4, then back there 5, 6. I went to 6 different high schools, and it wasn't because my parents moved.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was because I got kicked out. Man. And there was one year I just decided not to go to school, man. Like, it wasn't, I never got into drugs and stuff like that. I just didn't go. I was a troublemaker.
Rebellious.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it. Mir looks shocked right now. He's like, what? I wouldn't say it.
Very surprising to me.
Yeah. So I ended up graduating high school 2 years later than what I was supposed to. And growing up in my younger years prior to high school, I was always like the best athlete.
Yeah.
And I don't know what brought me through, because where I was supposed to be, or where I was predicted to be, wasn't where I'm at. You know, I was supposed to be probably working at a fast food place the rest of my life, and, you know, that kind of thing. And so when I finished high school, you know, there was a lot of feelings that like I underachieved, and I was embarrassed because going through high school, I was supposed to be the guy,
Right.
and I wasn't.
Right.
And I was looked at as more a loser, you know, even though my friends, you know, they got the accolades, I didn't. I was this like dropout. And I enrolled at Orange Coast Community College, and I said, I'm going to play football. And so it was a joke in the town for a little bit. Well, you hadn't played for, you know, since you were in 8th grade, and you were good then. But I mean, fuck, you know, we played high school football, and like they didn't get any scholarships or anything. I went to Orange Coast Junior College, and the first year did pretty good. Second year I did outstanding. And I got a scholarship to Kent State University, which, as you know, is a Division I school.
That's phenomenal.
And it all came down to this weird, and just going back to like how there's some kind of pride that I have in myself that I said, I'm not going to sit back and accept my fate.
Right.
And I think that when we talked about at the start how we opened up, we talked about relevancy, and I've seen people fall off, is that at some point in their life, they accepted their position.
Right.
Somewhere along the way, you know, when you see that dude that's in, you know, I'm talking about the general, not people that can control this and stuff like that. I'm talking about the dude that gave up. You know, he's 100 pounds overweight, wearing, you know, long baggy cargo shorts with flip-flops, and, you know, right? And he don't care, man. You know,
he's accepted his destiny for what it is. And that's all he knows that his worth is.
That's it. You know, and there's something that happened, and you know, he goes to his 9-to-5 job that he is barely getting by, and one bad thing happens. If his tires blow out, he's
over.
Screwed. You know, and he is intelligent. He has all the capabilities to do it, right? But somewhere along the line, he accepted his fate. I don't know where I got that. I don't know where I got that ability not to accept my position in life. But
you know, I think for me, just to listen to you, I kind of have an idea when that shift happened, in my opinion. Because I feel like as you're grown up, you've had something about you, you know, up to 8th grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
An it factor.
The significance, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to talk about a little bit about what Tony Robbins talked about the human needs and stuff like that I've kind of picked up from just listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a kid growing up, you've had that up to 8th grade. And when you go to high school, and all of a sudden, like, your entire identity is shifted. You're not that guy anymore. You're considered to be a loser, and you're just constantly messing up left and right. And for you to go to college and have kind of a second shot at something that you kind of already screwed up in a younger age that did change for you.
Yeah.
I think where you get it from is that second chance, because I had the same thing myself. I screwed up big time in high school, you know, just with drugs and partying and girls, and just went to a very dark path for a few years. Mm-hmm. And when I came out of it, it was like, to me, I was like, man, I remember always as a kid growing up, I've always wanted to be a star. I've always wanted to make it big, you know, always had that in my mind. And when I went through the period of high school for me personally, where it was just showing up with cop cars, handing me to my parents at 16 years old, just a lot of really bad things that went down.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, when this whole new journey for me began personally too, I was like, I've already screwed up one time. I had a dream to be a soccer player back in the day, you know, and I used to watch soccer videos and cry. That's how passionate I was about it. And I screwed that up in high school for the decisions I chose to make. And coming out of it into this new journey, like it always, it's in the back of my head, like, you've already screwed up once. You're not going to get another chance. How many more could you screw up? So that's why I take it so much more seriously personally, because I think I went through that. Mm-hmm. I think you've kind of had a similar experience in high school as well.
Very similar, and you really nailed it. And there's that part where you know that you're not going to go back, and you know it's a part of success. Is, do you learn from your failures? You know, some people don't. You know, they just repeat it, but you cannot accept your position in life. And you know, when you think about it, you know, you're constantly having to not accept your position, right? Whether it's socially, whether it's financially, whether it's physically, right? You're never staying the same in anything. You're either getting better or you're getting worse, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you have to constantly constantly go through that. So, you know, I don't know where I got that from, but, you know, it's definitely in me. And I never accept my fate, no matter what it is. If I'm not comfortable with it, then that's not how it's going down, you know?
And I think a big part I also listen to as well, it's like no one is created equal. Like, for example, Kylie Jenner, right?
Sure.
Is going to be the youngest billionaire, for instance. But she comes from an abundant family that has a lot of business experience, has a lot of money and resources for her to give her such opportunity to become what she is. A lot of people don't have that. Yeah. And no one is created equal. You have certain talents, for example, physically that I don't have, right? Or mentally, you certain things that I don't have. And same thing with him, same thing with me. But I think one thing that I always look at that we all have equal is the 24 hours. We all given the same time, right?
Absolutely.
So kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about the concept of time, how you look at and perceive time as, and how your regimen, your schedule, your discipline comes into play in every 24 hours, and the way you set goals and the way you manage your time. Because I think that's one thing that anyone can take control of right away. So I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you know, there's different like techniques, and through the years I've done some where like every 5 minutes you write in a journal what you're doing, right? And then you can kind of go back and audit, you know, your time. But you nailed it. I mean, when you really think about it, it's all we got.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. I mean, you could slice and dice anything else, man. All we got is time. There is no other thing. So then how do you use it? And I think the best way to manage your time is to get your value straight. Know what you value and put your time into it, because what I value might not be what somebody else does, you know? And so they see me in the gym and they're like, dude, you're spending your whole life in the gym, man. You get one life and you're lifting. Well, you know, there's a value to it, because then there's a synergy between all the other things in my life that I have because of that. Right. And so, but I could look at somebody else's life and, you know, they're spending their time differently. But I think for me is that you have to be organized, and not so much in the sense of like, well, I'm organized. You know, I mean, you have to have your home in order, right? You have to have your home life in order. You know, whether it's relationships, whether it's your laundry, you know, I mean, this sounds like a home ec, you know, thing, because I talked about making a bed and now we're talking about laundry, right? But there's a synergy also too between all those things, because if you go to any successful, you know, CEO's home, spotless, right? And they're not guessing what shirt they're going to wear the next day. They're not hoping that they have some clean underwear, right? I mean, they know exactly, and their home life is in order, man. You know, and like, you know, if you're a dude on here, man, and you're listening and you got a crazy girlfriend, man, the chances of you being successful is not very good, man, because that is going to bring you down, you know, and if your home life is in order, then your time management isn't going to be in order, because while you're supposed to be getting things done, man, you got all this other stuff in the back of your mind, this drama, right?
There's never true clarity to move forward on what you want to do.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that there's like different ways to answer that. And, you know, I could go to the structural form and say, well, you know, wake up, no. But I'm more about like the bigger picture. And if you want proper time management, then you have to make sure that your home life is in order, right? You have to make sure that like things are clean and picked up, you know, and having more is actually having less. So it doesn't mean you got to like buy more clothes to be successful, because now you're even more confused. You know what I mean?
So fucking true.
You want better time management? Have less things, man. You know, I see people make that mistake a lot, and they'll say, well, yeah, you know, I got all this stuff. And then I'm thinking about, man, now you have more things to manage.
Absolutely.
You know, so, you know, and now we're talking about something else, is, you know, just staying in your lane, man, you know, and having more is having less in a lot of ways, you know. I mean, for me, I keep it basic, man. I know I look good in a black t-shirt. I got some black t-shirts, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't need like another like different color or stuff like that, you know, but everything is organized for me, man. Like I don't have to have all these other things. And
so you would say simplicity is the key.
Simplicity is the key. Exactly. Simplicity is the key to time management.
It's so true because Tony Robbins always talks about.
Did he say that?
Complexity is the enemy of execution.
Okay.
When something is too complex and there's too many moving parts, there's
Yeah.
too many chunks to it, you're not going to most likely execute.
What I said is completely organic, so I don't even.
Yeah.
I didn't,
It's crazy
I
you
didn't
said
hear
that.
it from Tony. And all my stuff really is. Even though I've had people,
Yeah.
the things that I say come from complete experience. I mean, complete trial and error,
Yeah.
knowing what works, what doesn't work,
Yeah.
and then, getting back up and doing it again. But I think that's the key is simplicity and having your home life in order.
What I really respect is how much you admire the little things that so many people look past. Like, you're such a big believer in making your bed, fulfilling the little promises that you make to yourself. And you might think to yourself, doing my dishes after I eat is not a big deal. Making my bed in the morning is not a big deal. Making sure I tie my shoelaces a certain way is not a big deal. But you really take those things to heart, and you really use that for your momentum to push yourself forward. And I think it really defines the disciplines that you have, which we haven't really talked about yet, but I feel like when you have those systems in place for yourself, it propels you to go to places that other people just can't.
Absolutely. Well, because they're kind of caught up in all the fluff, right? When you look at it, the super highway has already been paved. Everybody kind of thinks that they're Columbus, right? I just discovered America. No, you didn't, man. No, you didn't, bro. I mean, America's already been discovered. The super highway is already paved,
Right.
So when you look at that super highway, no matter what business you're in, no matter, what goal you're trying to achieve, you stick to the basics, stick to the principles that get you down that road.
Yeah.
And, time management, then that was a great question. The abundancy of what you accumulate will only bog you down. Keep the things that you value close, keep the things that make you happy. And usually it's the simplest things.
Absolutely.
It's the simplest things, man.
It's so true, man.
And I think that you get that from having a lot of gratitude in your heart, and, man, before I make it a point that I don't even look at my phone till I take about 20, sometimes 30 minutes, just have my eyes closed and fill my heart with gratitude before I start the day. I don't look at my phone
every day.
Every day, no matter what, man. I fill my heart with gratitude. I think about all the things I'm thankful for. I think about my opportunities that I have in life, and man, I just fill my heart with gratitude, and that right there gives me the focus that I need for the rest of that day, and I'll tell you, man, I am so grateful for all the things and opportunities that I have in my life. That's really, I guess if we looked at the basic structure, that would be at the bed or the bottom is gratitude. That's what everything is built on.
That's your foundation.
That's my foundation, and that allows me, like you mentioned, to focus and appreciate the smaller things in life, because, man, that's really the nuts and bolts of life.
It is. And one thing that I'm paying attention to quite a bit based on what you're saying, because one thing that you did say about simplicity, it's understanding and tapping into the power of your environment, right? If you're, like you say, you have your home life correct, right? If your home life is right, everything else is also can potentially go right. I think simply the reason for that, when you say that, is because obviously it's your environment, right? If you're in a dysfunctional relationship and you're in a dysfunctional home situation with your parents or whoever you live with, or same thing with work, or same thing with your friendships, that is going to bring you down, because the environment that you're a part of is not right. If I hang out with a bunch of people that smoke heroin, right, for years, no matter how strong I am, I'm going to end up having to try it, because that's the environment that I'm putting myself in, and vice versa. If I spend my time, let's say next 6 years, I'm going to spend every single day with you, my fitness life is going to improve, whether just to stay in the court, like,
absolutely,
it's going to be the same thing, right? So I think I really appreciate the fact that you look at that, and that was a big spark for me, was the power of your environment, and kind of tapping a little bit deeper into this, right? Outside of the environment, controlling your environment, what you put into it.
Yeah,
which allows you.
If you want to soar with the eagles, you can't hang with the turkeys.
Exactly. I love that. I kind of want to talk a little bit about, your mental life as well as your emotional life, because I think it's a big part. Like you just talked about gratitude, right?
Yeah.
It's a form of emotion.
Absolutely.
And so is anger, right? So is frustration. So is sadness. And so is excitement, passion, right?
Yeah.
I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about the way you think. How did you adopt to think this way? Were you always thinking this way from the very, very beginning? Or what has happened that you developed the way you think and how you look at things? I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about the way you think about things, and also the way you manage your emotions.
Through failure. I mean, failure, when you fail enough times, as I have, then you understand your emotions. You understand why things are happening. If we're talking about things like anger and that kind of stuff, you learn very quickly that if you have a bad temper and you're an angry person, you always lose. The person that loses their temper first is the one that loses. They might feel good at that very moment, but if there was a video camera on them showing them get pissed, they would be embarrassed. Right.
Number one rule in sales too.
In sales and just in life, like the first dude that, there's like, and we're all guilty of this, man. Somebody cuts you off and it's like, the first dude to flip the guy off lost. You know what I mean? Who wins is the guy that says, peace, brother. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the winner, right? So, when you start to learn how to control your emotions, and the second that you have any kind of like anger, resentment, you lost. That's it, So, but through failure, man.
How do you develop that skill though? Because like for me, right, something that you mentioned, I'm normally not an empathetic person. Yeah. I'm super driven about my own personal goals. So sometimes I can't sit back and be empathetic. And a lot of time I'm a hothead too. I'm a hothead, right? And I think that's one part what makes me personally successful, because I'm super aggressive about things and super intense. But sometimes it could be my worst enemy, like someone cuts you off. So I've developed that skill through meditation. The more I like yesterday, something happened that I had to drive 30 minutes to a place. And I found out the person that I was picking up was not there. I had to drive another 30 minutes. At the moment when I found out, I was like, I'm at the wrong address and I'm 30 minutes away. Yeah. I got super pissed off. I'm like, what the F? And then something came back. I was like, whoa, there's no... The skill is to step back from that emotion. Say, hey, I'm just going to be happy regardless, no matter what. There's nothing that me being pissed is going to do. So I'm just going to have a happy ride. Right. But I would have never had that if I haven't been meditating, for example, for me. That's what I've came across. So is there different ways that you could develop that? Because it's a great skill to have.
It is. You know what? For me, it goes way back, like old school, I was punched in the face early in life. and I think getting punched in the face and understanding the power of another grown man will humble you, right? And know that like maybe that's not the best course of action. And so, I've been humbled in so many different ways. So I think everybody's experience could be like different, on how they arrived there. But I could only just tell you, however you arrived there, get there quicker than later, because not being able to control your temper or your emotions is not a key to success always. But there are the people like yourself that is definitely a red personality. Like when you ever do like the color wheel.
I've never done that. No.
Yeah. So there's like the color wheel. There's like red, green, blue, and like when you learn about like the colors of people, there's characteristics that come underneath there. Yeah. And then you're able to talk to them. So then you're not offended. So if somebody that is red, they're like, hey, they need information quick, right? So if
where can I find this? I'm going to put this in my notes.
It's Strength Development Inventory, SDI, I think it is. I'll give you more information on it, but it's a color wheel, right? Yeah. And so it's great to learn how to talk to people, because what happens is that if somebody red approaches me, then I know that I have to give them the information quick and accurate. Absolutely. And that's how I connect with them. But if I gave them information slow and kind
Beating
of
around the bush.
not good, right? And then say for somebody that's a green personality, they're very
Can you describe those personalities to me?
Absolutely.
I'm very curious to know about the colors. I'm curious
well,
to know.
there's different ways to look at them, but so like for like a green personality, they're more analytical, and it can even go to a body type. So you have a mesomorph, ectomorph, endomorph. And these are two different principles. I just put them together. But an endomorph is somebody muscular, right?
Yeah.
And usually their personality ends up being red.
Yeah.
You know, somebody that tends to be more viewed as aggressive and goal oriented. Then there's a blue, which is an endomorph, and their body types are usually bigger, right? So if I see somebody's body type, I can almost know that they probably are a blue personality. So when you talk to them,
Yes.
then you want to know what you want to give them the feelings and emotions behind something. So if I was talking to them, I'd say, man, that really made me feel happy, or that really made me feel sad, and then they would understand me. But if I powered through them and I was like, man, dude, they would back off, right?
Yeah.
And then
So they're a more empathetic approach.
empathetic, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And then there's green, somebody that's green, and their body types are usually skinnier because they're analytical, right? So they think along the line. You know, they usually are joggers.
Yes.
They need numbers. So if I talk to them, I'm like, hey, 2 + 2 = 4. You know, they get that mentality. But if I blew through them quickly, or if I gave them emotion, they'd just be.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating how you correlated those things together.
Yeah. So
I think definitely you're definitely a green
Yeah.
Personality, 100%.
And you mentioned you like to jog, and so you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So hobbies actually fill in to body types and then personalities. Not always, but at least you could kind of get a feel for it.
It's usually very well connected.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think you're a red personality too, dude.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Oh,
100%.
I'm a red that will like pose as a green and pose as a blue, because see, once you understand it,
Yes.
then you know how to fit into a conversation with somebody, and not in the sense to say, well, I'm getting over on you, I'm really red, but it's the fact that you could connect with that person.
Right.
You know, the fact that you guys could now share conversation, and because at the end of the day, people remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
And if you can't connect with them on a level that their personality naturally is available to, then you miss these connections in life.
My uncle gave me he gave me one of the best piece of advices I've ever heard. And he told me that everybody likes to get fucked a certain way. And it had nothing to do with sex. It's exactly this conversation. He made me realize that not everybody wants to talk to you or be talked to the way that you talk to them, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand people. You have to understand how they want to be nurtured, how they want to be talked to, how they want to fill in the blank for anything. And if you never understand how to build that rapport, build that relationship, you'll never get anywhere in life, because people will never like you. And it's not because you're not a great person. It's because you didn't make them feel the way that they wanted to feel.
100%. 100%.
It's very interesting you said that. I remember I read a book called The 6 Thinking Hats. I don't know if you've ever read this book.
No.
It's a very ancient book, but it's amazing. Like it has a color system of thinking.
Yeah.
And this doctor is like spent all of his life studying human thinking. How does the mind work and how does the thinking work? And he broke it down into a book with 6 thinking hats that we all have. But some people are in one primarily most of the time.
Sure.
And he describes it to you. And the whole purpose of doing it is reading this book is kind of applying it to your own life and problems that come up or anything in business. And the blue hat, right? There's 6 different colors. The blue hat is your deciding hat. It's kind of the subconscious hat that decides what hat to have on.
Sure.
Right? To apply to a certain situation. So that's more of like the driver hat. That's kind of you, the core person.
Mm-hmm.
The white hat is your logical hat, which means when you look at a problem, when you look at a situation, you really look at it, like you said, numbers, facts, graphs, charts. I want to know details, and they're only true facts. There's no emotion involved in it. They're very factual thinking is the white hat.
Mm-hmm.
The green hat is more of the creative part. So when you look at a problem or situation, you don't look at the facts. You're more of a creative person that thinks of, okay, what's outside the box? And you're thinking a lot of creative ideas of different things you could do. That's more of the green hat. The red hat, it's not a thinking. It's more of a gut sense that you have to something. You're talking to me right now. You have certain your belly mind, right? Your belly mind intelligence that feels a certain way about it. It's more of your gut feeling about a situation. That's another type of thinking that humans have. And then you have the yellow hat, which a yellow hat is more looking at any situation or problem, right? And you're looking at it only in an optimistic standpoint, which means what are the upsides? What are all the logical, true reasons, not overly unrealistic optimistic, but realist optimist. And you're looking at all the things that could potentially go right. What are all the benefits, all the profits, all whatever you're going to get out of something. And you have the black hat, which is the last hat, and is the exact opposite of yellow. Any situation or problem you look at the downside. What could go wrong? It's more of a pessimist approach of mind that you have toward it. And I've realized, like, what you just said is actually pretty amazing because this is the kind of different approach, but it's more personality type than thinking type that I can kind of relate to. And I realized, like, a lot of people that even watch this or listen to this, they probably most likely have their black hat on. I'm like, oh, what's being skeptical and pessimistic about things as opposed to having different types of hat on for every situation. So kind of wanted to just point that out. It was just an interesting book I read that kind of related to what he said.
And it does relate. And I think that, you could, instead of like taking those hats, you could simplify it into just the color wheel that like possibly your personality fits into certain characteristics that not only make sense for you so that you say, well, I'm not a dick. I just, like I might be red and some people might think like I blow through them, but I'm like the snowplow that clears the road so people could drive. Right. So
interesting way to look at it.
That's a fascinating approach.
And that's the way I think about it for me, is like, I have to sometimes like slow my redness down, but then I think about myself. It's like, it's not me being a dick. It's me like saying, I'm the snowplow and I'm going to clear this road so that you could go about your day and, go to work, get your family, whatever. Yeah. And so, I think that, at least not only on the communication side, of communicating with others, but it also too allows you to kind of come to terms with who you are, and like, this is why, and that's okay. So,
and also knowing sometimes the personality types we have, sometimes it goes against you. It actually hurts you in certain situations, right? Sometimes it could be harmful. So I think knowing them, but hey, you have to be able to adapt to certain things, because if you approach someone a certain way, you approach a situation a certain way. For example, having the black hat on, right? Only the pessimistic mindset. You may not get certain results. You may have to be able to change that. So I think it's an interesting way to look at it. Kind of want to dig into this. So for fitness, right? I want to talk about this, and then I want to get into a little bit of business as well with you. So, that two expertise that you have. How do you break it down? If I want to become, let's say I have a certain goal, right? I kind of want to talk about a little bit psychological part of it when you start on a fitness journey to really transform your life and transform the way you do it. Yeah. And also more of the mechanical part of it outside of the psychological. Okay, what are the things that are needed as a diet, certain way, your training, your rest, things of that nature, and also more of the psychological aspect of it as well. If I want to transform my body, right, to whatever I want to do, what are kind of the mechanics and the psychological thing that you would say you've developed over the years that can help?
I think it's changed over the years. We kind of talked about this when we were talking before, how, I came into fitness a long time ago where people didn't know what the macros were. People didn't understand that you had how much protein you had to have, or the carb cycle. I mean, this is still relatively new, and this is why you're seeing people that adopt these lifestyles of eating and fitness, that they're making gains later in life or earlier in life with poor genetics, and they're breaking through their genetic barriers because of the information that we could share with each other. Like we talked about before, is that, you would go to the gym and then you would smash a couple pizzas, and I was with the best people, so like I had no ideas of macros until like 2012, 13-ish. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of when, I stopped going through the Del Taco drive-through. You know what I mean? It did, it made a change. But so to answer your question, as far as now, I think the biggest key mentally to start is don't compare yourself, because you're going to fail. You're going to look at somebody and you're going to say, now there's nothing wrong with saying, I'd like to look something like this or whatever, but you have to understand that you are one in trillion billion. There will never be anybody like you. You are special. I don't care if you're overweight, if you're skinny, if you have poor muscle structure. You are unique, and you will always be one of a kind. And so you have to first, when you get into that starting, you have to appreciate what you have. Because if you don't appreciate it, you could have 10 abs and you're going to need 12.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever be good enough. And I've been there before. I've been there to where I was diced all the way from my ankles to my head. Right? And it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. And then I realized is that when I started this, I wasn't appreciating like that I was
uniqueness.
That I was one of a kind. There'll never be another person like me ever. And you and anybody listening to this or watching, there'll never be anybody like you. So you have to first start off with that part of it. Like, I'm unique, I'm freaking awesome, and I'm going to give it my best.
Yeah.
And I think when you start there and that's your starting point, mentally, you're going to get through those humps where you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you're like, oh man, dude, fuck, I look shitty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't care who you are, like you're going to go through these things and you're going to feel like.
Trip yourself up mentally.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's so fascinating that you said that, especially because I'm the skinny guy in between both of you guys. When I was younger, even up until recently, to be honest, I always compared myself to other people. I was never happy with how I looked, and I never enjoyed the workouts because I was always trying to compare myself to somebody else. As soon as I realized what my body's made of, like who I am, and appreciated myself for who I am, the workouts became more enjoyable. I started appreciating how I look like. I started to respect my athletic abilities more than ever before because I may not be big, I may not be strong, but I'm great at this, that, and that, right? And it gave me a different perspective in life, and I feel like it's so important for everybody to know because everybody's a different shape, everybody's a different size. If you're trying to go for something that's not you, you'll never get there.
Absolutely. And what's going to happen is you're going to learn failure. And you're going to you learn it in a way that you're not going to come back from.
Right.
I think failure is great, but the thing is like, are you setting yourself up for failure or setting yourself up for success?
I'm really happy that you said that too, because earlier when you were talking about relevancy and how you look at yourself in the future, you mentioned that you like setting goals for yourself that are far away, but far away enough that you could still see the light at the end of the tunnel. You have to work hard to get there. There's no doubt about that. But it's achievable. But when somebody makes a goal that's way too grandiose, way too far out there, you're never going to get there. Yeah, because you can't visualize yourself there. It's out of your grasp.
There's steps to it, and especially in fitness. I mean, there's so many steps to it. If you want longevity and you don't want the quick ride of getting on a bunch of gear and then it's like, okay, I look great for 6 months and then I look like shit the rest of my life.
Then it's all over, right?
Yeah, but the one thing that people miss in fitness, and this is something that if they want to talk on a deeper level of fitness, is that they have to understand that fitness is only a goal that you see. The image of you and you and me, like we only see it individually, right? And so that goal, and you have to protect that dream, and you have to protect how you're gonna look. You know what I'm saying? And like you're the only one that sees that. So when I see people in the gym and I see them lifting, I know that and they don't look probably where they want to look.
Right.
I know that they have this dream in their head and they're protecting it. And you have to protect that vision of yourself because you are the only one that has it. Nobody else knows how I want to look.
Right.
Nobody else wants to know it's only my vision, and that's what keeps me coming back and back and back. And anybody that you see, they might not tap that deep into it, but that is what they're doing, is they're protecting that vision of themselves.
What do you do when you want to quit?
Like
how do you overcome that? For people, that's the biggest part, right?
Yeah,
that's
if
a great question.
You put them all together, right? And you go through the fucking journey. Like for me, when I did the stuff that I'm doing, there were so many times I just want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to wake up at 2:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I really don't. I don't want to jump in a cold shower. I don't want to train. I don't want to read. I don't want to meditate. I don't want to visualize, and I don't want to work 15, 16 hours.
Yeah.
Like a lot of days I just don't want to do it. Right. And I have certain principles that I kind of put myself through, but I'm very curious to know, because I'm learning myself quite a bit. What do you do on the days that you don't want to do it and you want to quit?
Yeah. Well, I think for people in general is that they have maybe created goals like we just mentioned too far out, and they haven't accomplished these smaller steps. And another thing too, and we talked about this in our pre-conversation, is this the area that they want to go into? So we're talking about fitness, lifting weights, right? Yeah. That might not be their answer, because
right.
It's painful for them to go to the gym. When I go to the gym, I get the same experience as somebody that likes going to nightclubs.
It's pure bliss.
It's pure. When I,
right.
the people that love going to clubs, the same energy and feeling when I'm in the parking lot and I take a couple scoops of non-stimulated pump, right? And I take a couple drinks of water and I'm setting my playlist.
Right.
There is no difference between that and then having a VIP table at a nightclub. Same feeling. I've had it both, so I know. And so for me, it might be different than others. But my recommendation for people that want to quit is find that feeling. Find that feeling of joy in some kind of activity.
Right.
It could be tennis. It could be running. It could be anything.
Yeah.
But the thing is find that feeling. For me, they go, oh, well, why don't you go on the weekends? I did. I worked out twice.
Yeah.
I worked out Friday night. I worked out Saturday.
I admire that mentality so much.
And I could get so much. I could get the same pleasure going to the gym as I could a nightclub.
So I mean that kind of brings something to it, though. Let's say, because I've studied a lot of Tony Robbins's work, and he talks a lot about that pain and pleasure principles, right?
Yeah.
When you get an idea and you look at someone who's a chain smoker, loves smoking cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of quitting for them is too painful. So they have linked in their brain a certain feeling, like you were describing about the feeling at a nightclub or the gym, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have linked a certain feeling, certain state of mind to smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
And for them, it's too painful. It's too much pleasure that they get from it, and it's too painful to quit. Yeah. How do you get that mental shift? Like for me, I have certain ways I do it. Like to me, I'm like, okay, if I want to, the way I look at it is say, okay, if any area that I want to change in my life that I know it needs to improve. If I'm out of shape and I have bad health and I'm still not caring to work out, I know how to change that, because I can go force myself to say, hey, look at what happens, and go show my brain, look at what happens. Go walk into, for example, a hospital of people that have been smoking for years and have holes in their throat and they look just screwed up. Go take a walk down that path.
Yeah, that won't work for them.
That won't work for them, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I have that realization, like any area, if I'm out of shape, I just have to go look at videos and things of what would happen to me in long term. So I can make the pleasure that I get from eating shitty food and create pain, because now to me, that ice cream, it tastes, when I look at the ice cream, I look at diabetes and being fat and out of shape and not being the significant person I want to be. As someone else that looks at the same thing says, man, that's delicious. I want to have that food and eat it. So how do you go in there and change those pain and principle pleasures? Because some people look at gym and going through the workout as like, oh my God, going through the workout. As me, like I look forward to it. I feel bliss when I'm training. How do you make that mental shift?
And that's a great question. And it actually is easier than you think. Change your values. Change your values. That's it. Change what. So people say, well, James, you changed. You used to we'll go back to my childhood.
Yeah.
You were a troublemaker. Now you're successful. Well, I'm still James. I'm still that same guy. I still have the same memories. I probably still have the same capabilities, but what changed is my values, what I valued. What I valued is more important than that.
Yeah.
And so people don't change, but their values do. And that's key to success. And that's key to understanding how you could change.
Describe to me what you mean by values.
Well, so we could go to smoking, right?
Yeah.
So people that have a hard time quitting smoking, nicotine patch, or I don't know, whatever those things. I was never a smoker, but just all these different things, right?
Yeah.
Counseling, everything. Well, if you change your values and you say, as simply as this, I'm never going to pick up a cigarette with my fingers again.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah.
That's simple. Fuck all your patches, all the kind of stuff, is you just say, you know what? I'm just never going to pick up a cigarette with my fingers. You didn't quit smoking. You said, I'm never going to pick one up. And you make that promise to yourself. And then you start to change your values. What do you value? What do you value in the time that you spend doing? Do you spend time valuing, sitting around smoking, or do you sit around and value the time with a family member, a child, the gym, right? So, if you have somebody in your life that maybe needs some kind of like switch, give them some opportunities to find a new value. Not, you got to quit smoking because it's bad.
You also have to be able to replace it with something.
Some people do. Yeah. Certain personalities, like there's a trade-off, and I understand that. But, but if you change your values, what you value, there's a hierarchy.
Yes.
You will beat whatever the addiction is, or you will beat whatever motivation you're lacking because your values have changed.
Really, it's interesting how like values and beliefs kind of dictate your behavior.
Always.
And your rituals.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean, how would you, let's say I have that value. How do you go in there and change your values and beliefs? What's a process that I can say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, kind of a process that I would approach to change my beliefs? And
I think it all depends on what you're trying to tackle. If we're talking about fitness, it's going to be completely different than something like smoking, right?
Yeah.
Because it's two different things. But,
Right.
But, I think at the very core of it is how you value yourself, right? Like the ability to like put yourself on a higher level and think of yourself as a treasure, right?
Absolutely.
And so like when you have that, you're not going to go towards these lifestyles of, excess in ways that are going to hurt you. So I think it just depends. I think it just depends on what we're talking about. But, so fitness, if you want to change your values in fitness, think about how you want to look and protect that, and then change your friends. Most of the people that have issues with like their body or how they see themselves or like the failure in the gym is because of the shitheads they hang out with.
Absolutely.
They're pulling them through drive-thrus. They're taking them, they're getting drunk all the time. They're doing all these things, right? So now that turns to values. What do you value more? And then what happens is that there's this like, and we've all been through it in some capacity, and if you haven't, you will, is when you go to accomplish something and you find success, you're going to lose a lot of friends.
it's very true.
You're going to lose a lot.
It's happened to all of us.
That happens to all of us. But what happens is that what that really is, and this is what we're talking about, and it's interesting that it correlates like this, is what that really is a value change. That's a value change. You just changed your values.
And it changes your physical reality.
It changes your physical, it changes everything. And so, I think that, when we talk about values, it's a very thorny subject because it could go so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's not just like, well, your value, but, it all changes, whether it's fitness, whether it's business. The second that you find that you change your values, you're going to lose friends. You're going to lose, and the goals come, but it all comes down to values. So if you're having a hard time, finding like success, at the gym or in your fitness routine, change your values. Look at it. Go, who am I hanging out with?
Yeah.
Why am I not achieving these goals?
Yeah.
Why am I not happy?
Yeah.
And then you'll start to look at it and you'll go, my values are messed up. See, the way I approach, especially fitness, it's not, sometimes people will talk to me and they expect the answer like, oh, well, match your body weight with protein. And,
Yeah.
Like they think that's like, no, man.
It's a quick little answer.
Yeah. I'll ask them, is your home life in order? Is your bed made? What are your values? And they're like, how the fuck does this have to do with fitness? You know what I mean? But it does, because we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about achieving goals, right? And so, my core principles, it translates into everything. People that don't know me and they'll just, see me, or, when I was doing the whole Instagram thing a lot more, people would just judge me. They thought, well, you fucking lift weights. And nah, man, my approach is completely different.
Right.
It's a mental approach. And
I've known that. Like, I mean, you've given me, you've been there for me through some weird times in my life, like my relationships and stuff like that I had before. I was like in a really weird spot. And every time you've given me the advice, it's worked so much. Because I remember when you were talking about this just now, I got a flashback. Like 4 and a half years ago.
Yeah.
When I was going through like kind of a breakup situation, and I was talking to you about
those
it.
are always rough, but those
Yeah.
are always you know what's amazing about those situations, and you could speak on this. I'll let you finish. Is that it transformed your life?
Yeah,
it was the pain that you went through.
Yeah,
was better.
Yeah,
you're better off for it.
Definitely, because I remember you told me, it's like, man, listen, you can either use this emotion that you got and keep pondering around it and keep repeating the same pattern, or you can take this and transform it into whatever that next person that you want to be. Is it the beginning or is it the end?
Of course.
And I remembered I was like 17 years old at a time listening to you about when he said, or 18 years old at a time when he said this to me. I was like, holy cow. And that's where a lot of my transformation kind of came from, that point, moving on and doing my own thing. So it's so true when you say that. It's not just fitness. It can go to anything.
It all correlates. It's all the same thing. But
yeah.
You know, going back to that part, and you know what you went through at that time, was probably one of the best things that happened to you, because you know it allowed you to deal with emotions and move forward. People they confuse pain with something bad happening to you.
Of course.
You know, and you cannot have a comeback without a setback, and you will never, ever, 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 ever find your miracle in life, no matter what it is, standing safely on shore. You have to go into deep waters.
You need to experience every emotion that the world has to offer you.
Absolutely.
I hear so many people all the time. They're like, all I want to do is be happy.
Yeah.
If you're happy all the time, you will never grow, because you've never felt everything else. It's all about feeling it, experiencing it, understanding it, and knowing what to do with that emotion to propel you forward. But it's unfortunate, because anytime somebody has adversity, whether it be in the gym, right, you're pushing yourself a little too hard. It seems a little too heavy. You don't have that mental capacity to do it anymore because you felt that resistance. You'll never move forward. If you've never done anything with all those emotions that you felt when you were going through that relationship, you wouldn't be here right now. Right? So I just think and this may be a little off topic, it's so important to understand, conceptualize these emotions to put you at a better place, because if you just throw them deep in your subconscious, one, you're never going to understand what to do with it, and two, they're going to haunt you because it's always going to be there.
It goes back to what we were talking about before about relevancy, or at some point somebody in life quit. So you know, most of the times it was because of a failed relationship, right? They lose their relationship, and then they you know end up going to Chili's every night, drinking Bud Lights, and and getting fat, and they lost their identity. They lost their shape. You know, never lose your shape, never lose your physical shape, and they lose their physical shape, and they lose their mental edge. And next thing you know, they're stuck in some dead end job, and they're 50 pounds overweight, thinking about somebody that never thought about them after they left. You know, and so you nailed it on that part, and it goes back to everything what we just talked about before, is that at some point they use like a failure or something to quit.
The idea of momentum in this manner too is momentum doesn't discriminate between positivity and negativity. The scenario that you just explained, you let that relationship get the best of you. You gain 50 pounds. You have a dead-end job. This is all momentum towards negativity. Yeah. And you're not doing anything to better it, and you're just getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, man, you'll never find your miracle standing safely on shore. So, you know,
I think it was powerful. You'll never get a comeback without a setback. That's a very good one, dude.
Yeah, you'll never get a comeback without a setback. But you know, all your miracles will be on the other side of pain. And remember that.
Absolutely.
So when something's painful in your life or you're experiencing a setback, celebrate it, because what you have coming next is a miracle. So
Absolutely.
It's the way that our universe is designed. And I could tell you from many years of experience is I've never had a setback, or I've never had pain, and I never had something better not come along every single time. And so when something like that adversity hits me, I celebrate it, because I know, wow, something big is on the horizon, because I wouldn't be going through this pain without something better coming along. It's a trade-off, and it's how you go through it.
It's so fascinating that all three of us are sitting here. I've known Amir for a long time. Never met you before. This is the first time I've met you, and it's such a pleasure. But all three of us live more or less by the same code, by the same principles. You could use different words to explain it. I say that everything great in life is right after or behind the wall of resistance.
Always.
Same thing with you. You can never come, if you don't have a setback, you can never come back. However way you want to word it. But
I mean, to me, it's always been,
principles work. That's
Yeah.
what I'm
It
trying to
is.
get to.
I mean, here's the thing. One thing, I'm a big believer, like happy, and I don't believe that, man. Like the day you're like, you feel like you're happy, you've done it, you're good. I think that's the day you kind of die. That's how I always say, to grow, you must suffer.
Sure.
You must suffer to grow. It hurts pushing that weight, but you're growing.
Of
Of
right?
course.
It
Of course.
hurts to have that breakup, but you're growing as a person from it. So to grow, you must suffer. You must feel pain. But how do you get someone that you love and force them through that? Like, how do you do that, right? Like,
That's a great question.
because pain is something that
It's not pleasurable.
I've became
It's
immune to it.
avoidable.
Yeah.
It's avoidable. Most
I
people.
design my days to
Yeah.
be as painful as possible
Yeah.
because it makes me fucking tough,
Yeah.
mentally tough, you know?
Well, and
Sure.
you're that type of person. I've known that from the start. Is you're comfortable being uncomfortable.
yeah,
You know,
I
right?
enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're uncomfortable, then you're comfortable.
Yeah,
right?
I
And
feel
then-
happy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the different people kind of have different ways to get to that level. I think that some people are genetically inclined to be like that, but in order for people to process pain or to go through it the right way,
Yeah,
they have to understand that there is that miracle behind that pain, and most people don't see that. And I would say not even the vast majority of people don't see that. They see what had happened to them
yeah,
as the end.
Absolutely.
The end. I'll never find somebody better. I'll never have a better job. I'll never have a better physique. I'll never be in high school again and score 4 touchdowns. And it goes back to everything that we started talking about, is that somewhere along the lines they quit. They
Yeah.
stopped. And you can't do that. And it goes back even to what we originally said with momentum. You have to constantly keep recreating momentum, become relevant, in your relevancy changes, and then you have to redo it again and do
Yes.
it again. But yeah, I mean, I think that you have to understand that there is always a miracle beyond pain, and it's not the end. It's actually just the beginning. And so if you want to
So
get
well
somebody
said.
through that,
Yeah.
celebrate it. Celebrate your pain. Celebrate your adversity. And I promise you that you're going to go through it. There's a quote by Winston Churchill. Because see, most people, when they're in a situation, they stay in their pain. You know, there's stuff now too, unfortunately, like there's pills like Xanax and stuff like that, that when people are experiencing pain or anxiety, they take that.
to numb it.
Numb it. But what
so
happens?
sad.
What happens is they stay right there. You
Yeah,
stay
you never
in it.
overcome it.
You
Mhm.
never overcome it. You
Mhm.
just stay right in the middle. And Winston Churchill had this quote: "If you're going to go through hell, go straight through it."
Yes.
Right?
Run
I
right through.
fucking love that.
Yeah, where most people they hire like an interior decorator, right? They
Yeah.
like put a couch right in the middle of hell and they just sit there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they set themselves up in the middle and they never leave it. And so I think that when you understand the fact that there's something better on the other side of it, and that
Yeah.
this is only going to help you, then you get through it.
So let me ask you a couple of things. So then I talked about the psychology of fitness, right? I kind of want to
Sure.
pick your brain a little bit about the specific mechanics, right?
Mhm.
From the way you train, how often you train, your rest, your diet, your nutritions, how you actually go over the mechanical part of it. Because I think I've got a lot of good information out of the psychological aspect of
Sure.
it. Fitness that correlates to life. Fitness
Yeah.
is so much like life, dude. It's like
Absolutely.
business, right? Like
It's more of a
This-
spiritual journey than
it's
anything.
yeah, I said it in the beginning. It's a mental training through a physical experience. It's not the other way around. But I kind of want to get some of the mechanics of it now, right?
Yeah.
Training times, how often you do it, how you recuperate your body, nutrition, rest, things of that nature.
Yeah, you definitely have to know your body. So I'm more of a classic like overtrainer. You know, like I mean, a rest day for me is lifting once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's a rest day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
I
like
love
me
that.
like taking it easy. Usually, you know, it's cardio in the morning and lift at night, or sometimes it's lift twice. It just depends.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm an overtrainer. My body reacts to overtraining, where other people, their bodies don't. You know, and they need rest. So knowing your bodies first. As far as like results, I'm always a big believer in having skin in the game. So if, like, you don't really know what you're doing, but you do, everybody kind of has different experiences.
Yeah.
Hire not a trainer, but like a coach that like coaches athletes that get on stage, because like, say for instance, we talked about that cut that I just did, right?
Yeah.
I'm like 25 pounds in 9 weeks. And I would say that, I have just as much knowledge as anybody, and any coach that has ever told me, I already knew. But there's a level of accountability. And I did that cut with a coach. I knew all the same things he did, but I knew I was accountable. You know what I mean? So having that accountability helps. But, the mechanics of it, I think that cardio and diet are most important, which, I love lifting weights and I had to learn that. But if you really want to see your results, you have to see your muscles, right?
Yes.
And you have to see your muscle proportions. And, there's people like, oh, screw cardio, da-da-da. Well, they're the same guys that when they take off their shirt at the beach, they got a gut. They don't even look like they've been going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
yeah. And so
what would you rate it? Like, what percentage muscle development, sculpting, training, breaking it down, what percentage cardio?
I think it's all where you're starting from. So if you're starting with a slimmer build, then food's most important.
Yeah.
If you're starting from a bigger build, I always suggest that you cut first, lean down as much as you can, and then build up.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is it's kind of counterproductive, because you're going to put on size, and then you're going to then burn the muscle. Because no matter, if you're doing it naturally, in the cardio process, you're going to burn some muscle.
Right. Regardless.
So, so it's best if you're starting at a bigger size than to just diet down, man. Just focus on cardio. Don't focus on gains. Diet all the way down to almost the weight that you want to be at, and then start building out. Live at that weight for a month or two, and then start building out. And I think that's key. So it's always better to start leaner and then go out.
Yeah. What about so diet is a big part of it for a lot of it's the hardest part for a lot of people, right? So how do you kind of manage going through that when you're dieting most of the year?
Be prepared. Be prepared. So like, if you don't have your food ready, then you're already done. You listen, there's nobody that I know that is absolutely shredded that eats out.
Yeah.
They don't. They just don't. I don't know anybody that's like, yeah, well, I get my chicken breast from Applebee's or I don't know, I'm Chili's. I don't know why I keep going to these restaurants. I don't even go to them
quite a bit.
Yeah.
You secretly love Chili's.
I keep loving it. I don't know, man. Oh, I grew up in a city where like those were like the only 2 restaurants. So like, you know what I mean? That was like Morton's,
Yeah.
It's so funny.
But yeah, so but I think, you have to have your food ready. You have to have it ready. And so I don't feel like I'm missing out when I have prep. There's these amazing crock pots now, and I didn't know, but there's like an evolution in crock pots. But you remember how you used to have to put the chicken in and it'd take like a whole day?
Yeah.
You cook it in 10 minutes and it shreds.
What?
Yeah. And so the shredded chicken, I just shred the chicken, and it's not rubbery when you reheat it. You could eat it cold. And so with that being said, it's like, it's easy, but you have to have your food ready. If you're guessing on where you're going to go get your next meal, you're already messed up.
Yeah.
You have to have it ready, and you have to have skin in the game. So you have, if you invest in a coach, and I'm not talking about a personal trainer at LA Fitness, no disrespect to them. I'm talking about a coach that puts people on stage.
Yes.
You invest
an expert in the game.
An expert,
yeah.
And that you're going to get, you got to weigh in once a week. That he's going to see you or she's going to see you, and they're going to, do a pinch test and all that kind of stuff. The level of accountability goes up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to make those concessions. You're going to go, screw it, I could have this pizza. Nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
There's a consequence for your actions that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Exactly. So I think having skin in the game's big. Even for somebody like me, man, I just went through a prep with one of the best coaches in the world, and it was, and it was all because I personally know I wanted to have that accountability.
It's interesting you say that, because I've realized successful people, one personality traits that they have, whether it's in fitness or in business, is they know their metrics very, very, very well. Like if you're in business, they know how long it takes them to start a task, finish a task, how long it takes for them to make the certain production that they're making, how long it takes for them to usually close sales.
Mm-hmm.
They know their metrics and the time that they spent very well, very detail oriented to what their revenue they're bringing in, what's being taxed, what their expenses are. They know the small details.
Sure.
The same thing with fitness too. The more attention to details you have, right? What's my body fat? What am I? All those things. How much rest am I getting? The more of those facts that you know, the more successful, because you know more about them too, and the more you pay attention to the details. And that's why I feel like these clothing brands, for example, Louis Vuitton or so many other brands that are so successful, is the attention to detail that they have to their brand. Or even hotels. I was just in Vegas, we were talking about not too long ago, right? And the attention to detail, like at Encore and Wynn, is so great. I think that's what makes that hotel so successful. So do you believe that as well? Like knowing your numbers, knowing the details of whatever area that you're trying to get into, knowing those facts. How much would you rate it as far as scale of 1 to 10?
Let me even add on to that. How much more do you focus on fact versus feeling? Like which one do you prioritize?
I think that you have to have a feel for things. If you don't feel your body, like where it's at, whether it's rest, whether it's like, I need some carbs, I'm pretty low. But also too, the fact of the numbers, like, if you go through a coach. So, the baseline for me was 6 ounces of meat, lean meat, a half a cup of rice or sweet potato, and then some veggies. And then, in the morning, 6 egg whites, half a cup of oats. And then before I went to bed, 8 egg whites. That was really it. I lost 25 pounds, and, it wasn't like it wasn't a bad 25. I still had all my abs, but you know what I mean? Because you kind of, you'll rate yourself off of where you're at,
Yeah.
am I in 1 ab shape, or am I in like 4 ab shape? You know? So, I think that it's a mix, of feeling and fact, but you have to have the numbers to support the feeling, and I think if you start with the numbers and then you can kind of feel your way. But, so I did a WBFF show in 2015.
Yeah.
And I did basically a 5.5 week prep. So that's not very long for competing.
Yeah.
And, didn't do it right, cut really quick. But, I was amazed at what the differences were in diet. So like going into it, I thought, well, it's probably like I take a lot of supplements and all these kind of things, right? None of that. I mean, I did it natural, but my coach would look at me and he'd say, "Oh, you know what? Add an ounce of buffalo tonight. Have like 8 ounces of bison." Or he'd be like, "Oh, you know what? No, you know what? Up your carbs from a half a cup to 3/4 cup on your 4th meal." Or you know what? Let's bring your cardio up to 60 minutes, not 45. So when you talk about details,
that's super intricate.
It was intricate. It had nothing to do with like, oh, well, yeah, take this and, lift that. No. It was like, oh, no. Half a cup of oats, or do another ounce of chicken, or do less, do only 15 minutes of cardio, or do 45.
Yeah.
So it was all details. And I ended up getting 3rd out of 52 people.
That's phenomenal.
Thank you, on a 5-week prep. And I didn't even know how to pose. So like I
shooting
was
from the hip.
Yeah.
Really shooting from the hip. 5-week prep, right? The night before I got my shorts. I didn't even have shorts until the night before. And then I was behind stage watching people go out on stage.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do this, I'll do
that.
Yeah,
I was figuring out. Luckily, out of the 52, I was like, 49-ish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I was watching everybody on stage. So I'm okay. I'll try that pose. My routine was only when I went out there. That was the first time I practiced it.
Wow.
Wow. That's amazing,
That's awesome.
dude.
Yeah. But so
some natural talent there,
but
dude.
I do admire, and I want to note this, that you were making micro adjustments literally moments before you're about to hit the stage. You saw somebody do something, you said, you know what? If that's better than what I had going on, I'm going
switching
for it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I was lucky. I had, experience, like we mentioned playing college football, I played in front of thousands of people. So it's like, getting on stage wasn't a big deal. And I wasn't scared of like what people thought of me.
There was no butterfly effect.
I mean, I knew, nothing was going to happen to me, and I think when you feel safe with yourself, then, you could just go make those adjustments. And I wanted to have fun with it, but I was so focused for that 5 weeks on my diet and my cardio.
Yeah.
And my biggest takeaway was how crazy, like going up a half a cup of rice to 3/4 rice really matters.
Right.
The general population, like they just think that
there's no way that's going to make a difference.
Yeah. They just go, well, I'm eating good. I got chicken and rice, but they're right. They have a full cup of rice. Right. And in the fitness world, and somebody might be hearing this, they're like, oh, whatever. But if somebody that has competed hears this, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Music to their ears.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they know. Well, yeah, I mean, half a cup of rice, like that's it, bro. You know what I mean? Like that's all you need for that meal. But the general population doesn't weigh their food.
Right.
And if you want results, you have to weigh your food. You just got to. There's no ways around it, and you could start to eyeball. You don't have to throw it on the scale. I could just throw like chicken on. I could tell you that's 5.5. I mean, right down to like
so many times.
Yeah. I did it so many times. I could go, that's
so
5.5. Oh, that's 5.6. And I would play games with myself. I'd be like, all right,
and I'd try it out and see if you got it right.
And I'd nail it. Like like 8 out of 10 times, like I had it to the ounce. But I mean, it comes down to all that. It's just like these little fine details, and you would think like it's like your workout regimen, which it is, like what you hit when you hit it, but, the diet. So, if you're listening to this and you want to think, well, how do I improve my diet? Yeah. Weigh your food. And so then you're going to know, because you don't know how to make the adjustments. So if you know for 3 weeks, I'm going to have 6 ounces of lean protein, a half a cup of rice and some veggies with every meal. And then you can make the adjustments, and you can go, I'm a little flat. So now I'm going to have 3/4 cup of rice with my 4th meal. And you raise it up, and then you make these adjustments. And these little weird adjustments make a huge difference.
And you get to know your body better throughout that process.
Yeah, you know your body. But now you can make the adjustments 1 ounce more, 1 ounce less. Yeah. And that's really, that's that highest level of dieting.
I have a selfish question for you.
Sure.
Sorry to cut you off.
Go for it.
For me, every time I get into spurts of exercise, right? Mm-hmm. I'll go for 3 months and I'll just say, fuck it. Then I'll go for 4 months and I'll say, fuck it. It gets better and better over time, right? The time frame where I don't exercise is slimmer, but I used to try to prep my meals, this, that, and that, and I never really got into the mix of things. And that's because I've already put myself in a belief of, well, this is too hard and it takes too much time. But I really wanted to ask you, like, how much time do you spend on actually prepping your food, being conscious of what you're going to do when you work out, this and that? Because I'm assuming for somebody like you that's been doing it for over 30 years, and you're a busy guy, I can tell, right? You could go out and get your food pre-cooked, but you don't do that. You do it yourself. How much time does it take you? And is it as hard as people think it really is? Or do you simplify that process for yourself and just go?
Yeah. Well, I could tie in, and that's a great question. I could tie in everything that we talked about. So simplicity, right? My life's organized. My home's in order. So making food isn't a big drama for me. Found the new crock pot, right? Throw the meat in. I mean, my meat's done in 9 minutes, done. I'm shredding chicken, boom, boom, boom. Right? And it's done. So it goes to everything that we talked about, not living to like have more things, right? Because then like that would take up my time to go lift. That would take up my time to go prep my meals.
And those are way too precious.
And now what does that go to? Values. We talked about values. What do I value more? Do I value having all these other things that are going to take my attention away from my fitness, or do I value my fitness more?
Of course.
So I quit all those things, whether it was smoking, it was drinking. I used to drink a lot, not a lot, but I mean like everybody. And once my values changed and I went to fitness, I didn't have a value to go drink. Of course. So everything that you mentioned right there ties into everything that we talked about. It values, being organized, having, not having all these confusing things going on in your life, home life in order.
I kind of want to tie that into business too,
Mhm.
because it applies, man. I think like business is a
Yeah.
mental sport.
Sure.
At the end of the day, it
100%.
really is. It's a mental sport.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things you talk about kind of does correlate to it. Because now I'm just kind of sitting down listening to you, outside of obviously our listeners listening to. I'm like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot of things that I'm picking up myself that no matter how clean you do it, sometimes you have to go back to the drawing board. So I got to fix these things. So I have a lot of things in my mind that I'm going to go fix as soon as I'm done with this podcast, which I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Kind of want to relate the same thing to business. So how do you approach it? How do you look at what lens do you see business through? What are the principles that you stick to in business? How do you approach it? And
Where did you start too, by the way?
kind of give us a little bit of history on that, because I'm very curious to know I know your fitness mind.
Sure.
I want to know your business mind.
Sure. Yeah. So, same principles, I would say, but, in business is that you have to be ethical, because otherwise, if you're not, then you only have one shot, and it'll get you.
I'm such a big believer in that.
And yeah, so ethics and cards face up on the table, man. And once you go from there, and you're transparent in what you're doing, and in your business, and you're ethical, then you're gonna stay around for a long time, and you're gonna have success. But yeah, man, I started after I was done playing football, and I had a little bit of opportunity professionally with football, and so then I came home and I got a coaching job at Canyon High School over in Anaheim Hills. I was the football coach, and across the street from there, they had a LA Fitness, and at that time, you could just pay rent. So I paid $350, and I was my own business in LA Fitness. I was a personal trainer,
Right?
Personal training business. My company was called Team Training Team. So together, everybody achieves more.
I love that.
Right?
That's awesome.
And so,
Yeah.
you like that?
Yeah.
So that was my business, and I was really set up with the community because I was the football coach across the street, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So now I had the whole community behind me, and I did really well, really fast. Was selling memberships. It would be 3 months out, $80 to $100 a session, which back then was a lot. That was, the trainers that were in there before, they were training like $20 a session, $15 a session, and they were independent contractors. At that time, LA Fitness didn't have independent contractors. There was no LA Fitness trainer. This is how far back this goes. And LA Fitness wasn't LA Fitness at the time. They had locations, but not like
it wasn't
nationwide.
this huge thing that it is now.
Oh
Right.
yeah, no. It was small. Like, the CEO and they were all accessible.
Yeah.
And so I was doing well really quick, and some of the older guys that had been there for years, that were the guys charging $15 a session, got jealous, man. And we all shared one office, and they took my appointment book and they took it to this guy, Scott McKay, who was in charge of licensing at the time for LA Fitness. And they said, hey, look at this. Back then I was a young guy. So they said, look at this young guy coming in. He's taking all our business. Look at all the appointments he has. Look at how he took all these people. And Scott looked at it, and he took it to the CEO, and he said, look how much money this guy's making. And I could tell you right now that sitting here, I am the person that is responsible for LA Fitness being in-house personal trainers.
Oh my
Something
God.
you didn't know. Something you didn't know about
I
me.
did not know
Yeah.
that. No. I
Phenomenal.
used to work there. That's
Yeah.
how I know.
Yeah. So
Amir's like, you're the one that ruined this for me?
yeah.
Dude.
Well, no, but I got a lot of people jobs, man.
Yeah, that's for sure too. Definitely.
Yeah. So
That's so funny.
Yeah. So they went to in-house personal trainers, and they offered me a position within their corporate, and like to be like the head trainer. I said, not doing it, man. I was really pissed because I was making a lot of money. And so at the time, there was a guy, Ed Sullivan, that just started a physical therapy company, and he was going inside LA Fitness. His business model was to have the patient do non-weight bearing activity in the pool, and then have all the land-based therapy and the equipment, and then they would build out a back office in the LA Fitness, and they could do the back office modalities. And he just did his first licensing deal with Scott McKay. the gentleman that was in charge of licensing.
Yeah.
And Scott filled him in and said, hey, this young guy just told us to F off, man. We offered him a good job, and, we're kicking out all the independent contractors because we found out how much money we could actually make. We got this guy's appointment book.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know who Ed was, and I would actually approach him. He would be on the treadmill, in the morning and stuff, and I'd say, hey, man, come train with me,
Yeah.
So, that I know who you're talking about. That guy hits me up all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, I wonder if I could offer him a job. And so Ed came to me and he said, hey, look, man, I'm, you're going to get paid probably not as much as you were making. And, this is going to be very organic, but I'll teach you everything you need to know about business if you come work for me. And I instantly saw something in him that I didn't see in other people. And then
what was it?
Just the leadership, the ideas, you know when somebody is honest with what they're telling you, they're not, it's like, what, this is somebody I would walk down an alley with, and Ed's that type of person.
Yeah.
And so I said, sure. Long story short, man, is we ended up growing the company to over 56 locations. So when I came on, he just opened up his first one.
God, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we were the largest independently owned physical therapy company in the United States until Governor Schwarzenegger came into office, and then he reformed workers' compensation because there's two sides of payment. There's one where it's the defense side, the government and state pays for it, and then the other is like the applicant, attorneys that are suing, and we were more on the applicant side. That pendulum swung the other way. Ed saw it coming. Long story short is he sold the company, and then I was kind of like, what am I going to do now? And we talked a little bit about my mortgage experience.
Yeah.
And so I had a buddy that at that time, the markets were hot. And I didn't know anything about mortgage, didn't know anything. I didn't even know what the word meant. I can remember when he said, I'm refinancing people. I'm like, what? This guy was selling shoes at Nordstrom's. I'm not kidding you. Maybe 2-3 months before I think I bought a pair from him.
This is back in the subprime days.
Subprime. Yeah. And so he, and then I saw him in a Ferrari.
Oh man.
And I said, dude, man, like you're getting that from selling shoes at Nordstrom's? And he's like, nah, man, I started a mortgage company. Come work for me. And so
what a fascinating switch.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I can remember just like being, all right,
Yeah.
So I went to work for him, man. And I was one of the top producers very quickly because, work ethic and business translate, and what Ed taught me and what he showed me, it translates into everything.
Applicable to anything.
Anything, man. Yeah. Once you understand the superhighway and how it's paved, you could navigate any road. So I did mortgages, man, and I worked for the company for quite a while, and I was making a ton of money. I would make, and people throw around numbers, but real,
6-figure checks.
Monthly.
Monthly.
30,000 a month, 40,000 a month. I'm talking crazy. But like we discussed before, is that then I would spend 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be next month.
Yeah, and so not knowing much about the industry and only being in a couple of years, I started my own. At one point, I said, you know what, I'm going to go do my own thing.
How long did it take you to go from I just started mortgages to okay, now I'm going to be my own entity?
Like a year and a half, 2 years, like right around there.
So that's pretty quick.
Yeah, really quick. And so what I did is I didn't know how they got leads even. I didn't even know about paying for leads and stuff. So what I did is I took applications. I just took mortgage applications. What are they, like 1099s? It's been a while since I've been out of it. Are they called? Or no, that's
no. You're talking about 1003.
1003. Yeah, there you go. 1099 is what you pay for your taxes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the 1003. So I took some 1003s and I went out to San Bernardino.
Yeah.
And I just started knocking on doors. I had pit bulls chasing me down the street. Anybody that's been to San Bernardino, they know,
Super ghetto.
Yeah,
super ghetto. But I knew that like at that time, these people needed cash, and that industry. And at that time, you could do a loan stated. Can you still do stated loans?
No, man, it's long gone now. It's super regulated.
Yeah. So stated was basically like,
stated income, stated assets. Everything you say is just based on what you just told the person, no documentation needed.
That's it. So most people are like, what do you need to? Oh yeah, just say you make 200,000 a year.
Oh,
okay.
what a nightmare.
Yeah. Then you wonder like why we got into this mess, right? And so So I started knocking on doors, and I knocked on this lady's door, Shirley Cole, and this was probably like after like I'd been out the whole day, man. And I said, and before I went to the house, I would always notice like what it needed improvements, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like,
guy.
yeah, any kind of, well, you know, in any kind of sales call, before you ever walk into a sales call, know what you want to achieve, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Don't just walk in and say,
Walk in with an intention. Always.
Walk with, yeah. So I would look at the house and stuff, and I noticed she needed a new roof. So I knocked on her door and I said, hey, I noticed you need a new roof. You know, are you interested in refinancing? And she said, sure, honey, come on in.
Yeah.
And she filled out the 1003. I got on the phone with my friend Derek, who owned an appraisal company, and he did the appraisal, and I sent it to a bank, and that thing was funded in a couple weeks, made about $15,000 on it with that money. And like I said before, is I was making 30 but spending 50.
Yeah.
So I was making a lot of money, but I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And so at that time I said, man, perfect. I'm going to take this $15,000. I'm going to buy computers. And so we set up in my garage, in my house, and we started doing loans out of my garage. And we were doing so many that a title company that I was sending all my business to said, hey, we got a big vacant building, man. You want it? And I said, sure. How much? They said, rent free. Don't worry about it. I said, okay. So, and I think things were different at the time. So the title company actually allowed me to put my mortgage company inside one of their big buildings.
Yeah.
Actually right in Mission Viejo, right off the 5 freeway. So it was where that LA Fitness is, you know, those corporate buildings along the freeway?
Yeah.
I had the whole first floor.
Oh, man.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I had people just phones lighting up, right?
Yeah.
And so I was on top of the world. I was like,
so
you know what? Within a
fascinating.
short period of time, I had a 5-bedroom, 5-bath house up in Newport Coast, and this was when Newport Coast was just kind of developing.
Right. Yeah.
My pool view was straight to the ocean. 5-bedroom, 5-bath. This is when the 745 Li BMW was like it.
Yes.
The car, right?
Yeah. I had that brand new with like 24-inch rims, and it was dumped. You know what I mean? Because I'm kind of from the neighborhood. Yeah, I don't look like it, but I'm kind of from the
Slammed
neighborhood.
that thing to the
So I
ground.
slammed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I grew up. So I slammed it, and yeah, man.
I love
Do
it,
people
dude.
still do that? Do they slam? The
Yeah,
cars?
they do.
They
They
do.
do.
Okay.
They do.
Yeah. So, and dude, I was living large. You know, I told you, you know, in our pre-conversation about, you know, I bought 2 TVs each for $7,000 because at that time 70-inch TVs weren't available in like in flat screen mode.
You're like, I gotta have it.
Yeah. So in that big house, 5 bedrooms, 5 bath, I had
1 bed and 2 TVs.
2 TVs, 1 bed, and a couch, and then jujitsu mats. I was big into jujitsu then. So, and that throughout that whole house, that was it.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and
What year was this, by the way?
let's see. So the market crashed in 2008.
End of 2007.
Seven, yeah. So yeah, the first market started to go in Vegas and San Diego in like 2007-ish.
Yeah.
You know, smart people would have got out. I didn't know any different. I mean, I was still trying to figure out how to buy leads. And
wrong time. Dude.
Yeah, wrong time. So this goes back to a lot of what I've learned, and maybe if I have any wisdom, this is where it came from.
This is helpful for me because I'm doing the same thing you're doing, dude.
Well, yeah. So, but you're coming in with a lot more knowledge than I have, man. But so, you know, I had this big corporation or, you know, office, bunch of people, had the house, the car, everything, man. And that was 2007. And so towards the end of 2007, I can remember seeing San Diego and Las Vegas fall, which they were the first areas to shoot up in value.
Yeah.
And then they were the first to drop. I didn't recognize any of the signs, you know. I'm like, well, you know, it'll come back, you know. And so I kept buying more leads. And then what happened is the market started to shrink. And then I was buying leads like in like West Virginia.
Yeah.
And the loan amounts were like $5,000 for a house, you know.
Yeah.
Even if you got lucky to fund it, you were going to make $100, you know.
Yeah.
So long story short, man, is the market, as we know, crashed.
Just fizzled out.
Yeah.
I had no money in the bank. I was just living month to month.
Yeah.
As much money as I made, I spent. And I went from having a 5-bedroom, 5-bath house in Newport Coast to sleeping on a futon I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together back in the city that I grew up in, the house that I grew up. And I'm talking within like a couple weeks.
Wow.
That's how hard it hit me and how quick it hit me. And, you know, when you talk about not accepting your position in life or your fate,
Yeah.
that was the ultimate test of it, because I lost my girlfriend at the time. I lost my money, lost my house, lost my business. My grandma who raised me passed away, all within a couple months, man. And I was just laying there on a futon. And when I say I didn't have two nickels to rub together, I didn't. And I didn't have the BMW. I had a old, like, 1990 red Dodge Ram truck, not even double cab, single cab. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? It was like, you know, it was the worst of the worst, right? And I could tell you right now, besides mourning my grandmother's loss, is I always knew things were going to be okay. I love that. I never at one point, not in one point, did I say, this is it for me.
See, this is why where you are right now, and it's been the ethos of this whole conversation, is that no matter what happens, you just don't give a fuck. You just keep on believing in yourself and keep on looking forward to tomorrow.
Where does that undying will come from, though? Because here's the thing. I was listening to an interview with Josh Altman. He was talking about the same story, right?
Yeah.
He was like,
did he have the same experience?
Yeah, like, I was just flipping burgers. Next thing you know, I go in, I have a Ferrari, and I'm, you know, the mortgage company's parking lot is like an exotic car dealership, right?
Now the burger place won't hire him back afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And like my monthly nut was like $35,000 a month. So I go from being broke into a multimillionaire, and then as soon as the market crashed, I could not keep up with all those expenses and everything, and I went back to being broke again.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I know from that time, right, never came back. Very few people do come back from it. So it's like, where does that come from?
Yeah, you know, and so
that undying will, where does it come from?
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I could just tell you right now that I didn't have one bad day. There was not one point where I didn't think I was going to come back. I would go to Panera Bread. So I was back in La Mirada. That's where I was born and raised.
Yeah.
And I would go to Panera Bread because I didn't have internet, couldn't afford it. And I would go there in the morning. I'd apply for 50 to 100 jobs a day, and nobody was hiring. Nobody, but there would be these jobs up, and they were like jobs that you wouldn't want. And I'd apply. It would be like commission only, you know, sell solar panels, you know, just stuff that, like, you know what I mean?
There's no future.
Yeah, there's no, like, it was like just this grind that you were just going to get used.
Yeah.
And I would go every single day to Panera Bread, and I would apply. I'd go on Career Builders. And so then I would go to the beach right after. I'd get my mind right because I knew I had to protect my mind. If I was going to make it out of this, I had to protect my thoughts. I had to be involved in nature. You know what I mean? People really, you know, there's a rise in depression, and there's a rise in all this stuff, and they think that they need meds. And I could tell you from this experience,
that breaks my heart, by the way.
It's a bad cycle. And, you know, through my experience, what we're just sharing right now, and how, you know, a part of me getting out of the hole was going to the beach. And, you know, what you see right now in depression in society is that people aren't connected to nature in any way, in any shape or form. And that's the core of us. If you want to beat depression, and I'm not talking about the clinical, I'm talking about people with self-imposed depression.
Right. Yeah.
Go take a walk in nature. Go swim in the ocean. And I would make sure that I'd go swim in the ocean every day, and I would connect with nature, and it would just bring this centerness to myself.
Equanimity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. And so I would do that, and then I'd come home and lift weights, and I did the same thing every day. And I'll tell you, for most people, that would have been the worst time in their life, and I look back at it as one of the best times of my life.
It's very crazy you say that. I just had a town hall
amazing.
With the CEO of the company I work for, multi-billionaire, right?
Yeah.
Been in the game for 35 years, just on a different planet in terms of levels of success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting. He came and he gave this speech actually in our rally, and he was just talking about just that. And he says, you know, I'm an immigrant, because right now the market's kind of higher, right? It's a little bit tougher to do loans than it was before. Mm-hmm. So he came in and he was talking about, he's like, you know, like, it's very interesting. I thought the market is going to get way worse. I was hoping for the market to get way worse. And I'll tell you why. Because when I look back at my life, I realize money is a damn head fake.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start getting money, you start to think like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you know it all. And you don't seek out information anymore. You don't seek out being uncomfortable anymore. Your wisdom, the level of wisdom you get goes down when you have money because it's a head fake. But the times that I was broke, the times that I failed, things went completely sideways. I was in the rut, in the gutter, in the blind alley. Those are the times that I grew more. I value those times so much more. So I'm kind of sad. And I think the market is going to turn back up from this point on, and things are going to become Brexit again.
Yeah.
But it's so funny that I hear that lesson, and I hear you say this now. It's very true. It's very, very true. So I think even for me right now that I'm looking at it, you know, I think honestly saying it, I'm not in the gutter as much as I was 2-3 years ago. You know, how do you avoid that? How do you put yourself in that broke, like you operating like you're on your last dollar?
Sure.
How do you develop that? I'm very curious to know.
Well, you know, I think because of my experience and how far I fell down, I'll never go back there again. You know, so I to me, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save.
Yeah.
And so, man, I save my money, and I love saving my money, and not in a cheap way, you know, but
You don't live frugal, but you value having it there.
you know, exactly the comfort that you get in security is
Yeah.
way more seeing all that money in your bank account and knowing you're going to be okay versus saying, you know what, I could have that new Ferrari. I can go pay cash for it right now, but does that look better in my bank account, or does it look better, you know, me driving around? Goes back to values, right?
Right.
What do you value?
And I feel like you enjoyed that in the peak of what was going on in the mortgage industry. Did it bring you happiness?
No, it
So
didn't.
there you
And what brings me happiness is security.
There you go.
And right now I have security, and I understand that is more important than that, because that never got me anything. There's no. I was getting prettier girls in that Dodge Ram. You know what I mean? In that red Dodge Ram. Probably because I was more of a real person. You know, I wasn't like this like dude driving around in this slammed, like, you know,
relatable
BMW. Yeah, relatable.
Yeah.
But you know, I find more security in saving money. You know, and I think that it to see your bank account grow is one of the funnest things, and not grow for then you to spend it all. Reward yourself. You know what I mean? And there's things but take more comfort in knowing that you're safe.
Right.
That you know, something could happen. You'll be fine for a year, 2 years.
You know, one thing that's very weird, because I have a little bit of an opposite mindset of that.
I was
not
just
so much of spending,
Yeah.
but I enjoy the fact, like, I just put down a huge chunk of cash into a house I just bought. I put a lot of money into accounts for stocks and bonds and certain things that I just cannot touch. If I touch, I get taxed, right? And I'm about to do something like that again within the next 2 to 3 months. Some adjustments have to happen in the things that I'm doing, but I'm about to kind of put away everything, like another $600,000 put away into commercial property. To save to invest it, I like the fucking fact that I run on low cash.
Yeah.
I kind of like it because in a way, to me, I don't value security. I don't know why. That's just the way it, for me, for example, works, right? I don't value it. I like
the risk is sexy.
Yeah, I like that. I like the having my back against a wall, because I know I'm so much more resourceful, and I operate on a certain frequency.
Yeah.
When in reality, I have no fucking security, and I'm always running in it, and I have to waste the money and go spend it in stupid things. Sometimes it's good to get experiences, but not running it at all times. Putting it away and investing it for the future. So at some point, because I think the only reason you save money or you invest money is for income. Yeah. So at some point you don't have to work, and income is always coming in, right?
Absolutely.
Real estate, things of that nature. But what do you think about that idea? Saving and putting it all away into investments that are going to pay you in the future.
Yeah.
And you continue to operate.
There's a couple different theories with that. And your style is more what we talked about before, your red personality, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like that fits like really like your core nature, and like you're a hardcore red. You know, I think that there's shades of red. You know what I mean? Like you're bright red, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? There's shades, man. Yeah. I think it all depends on what your personality, your style is, you know, what values, right? We keep bringing this word values back, but what do you value? You know, it's not like you're going out and blowing it on, you know, all these like crazy like watches and suits and cars all the time, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, you have the things that motivate you and push you, but you're also investing in real estate.
Yeah.
There's a couple different, like, the person that I recommend the most to follow financially is Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you guys listen to him. He's awesome. You know, I highly recommend, because he's practical about stuff, but yet, you know, there's those times, but it's all about being able to, you know, retire a millionaire and do it quick, but in practical terms. You know, it's not something where, you know, it's not achievable for anybody. And, you know, one of the things that got me out of the hole that I was in, you know, after the mortgage thing is, man, I would have 2 to 3 jobs every year, no matter what. I knew I couldn't rely on one income if I wanted to get to where I was going. So one income I lived off of, and one income I saved.
You talked about this today before we even came here, when I just called you on my cell phone, about multiple sources of income.
Oh, you have to.
And there's, you know, things that I'm also doing right now, because I really believe that. Like investing in real estate is one. Your primary, you know, income from your business you get is one, and I've opened up some side businesses on the side to generate that. Well, give me some principle on that, like what you mean, because it's a part of a psychology when you say multiple sources of income. Well, I've heard every millionaire say that. Yeah, you have to, and I wish I would have even learned this way before, you know, but I learned it after the whole mortgage thing, and I said I'm never going to rely on one source of income. But, you know, let's bring it down to the level of like maybe some of these other people, because they don't have maybe the resources or the career experience that you have, like where you're talking about like investing in real estate, opening companies, right? Yeah. Like they're working a job that they're making $45,000 a year. Let's just talk the average person, right? Yeah. They hate it. You know, it's 9 to 5. So how do they get out of this rut, right? Like how do they like do their investing? Yeah. How do they have 2 incomes? Well, it's really easy. Is that if you took that $45,000 and you didn't have to spend it for 2 years, you're way ahead of the game. Yeah. Now you have 90, 80,000 in the bank, whatever, right? Yeah. Cash. It's different having that kind of availability to cash versus like credit or equity in a home. Yeah. So get a second job, man. So you work Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends, I don't care if you're delivering pizzas, if you're driving an Uber, if you're bartending, if you're bar backing, if you're working security, you get a second job that you could live off of, that you pay your rent, that you eat your food, that you go on your dates, that you buy your clothes, whatever you got to do. Just fucking do it. Just do it. But get that second job, and I'm taking it just to the basic level. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's one thing where people say, well, how do you form a second income? You got to, you know, all this, like, I'm talking just the basic level. Get a second job. You know, a lot of these people that complain about money or their dead end job, they're people that sit around on the weekends. Of course. Or they're people that sit around at night. Or watching football games. Exactly, man. You know, they could work that 9 to 5, and then they could go work at Dave & Buster's at night for a couple nights a week. But you get what I'm saying? Yes. Like, and you know that's my income that I'm paying my rent and living off of. And this check now, that $45,000 a year job is a lot more meaningful when that money is going straight into your savings. Now that job is actually kind of cool, and you're motivated, and now you're feeling better about yourself, and you're more confident. Well, what's going to happen from that? Yeah. Right. We talked about how important just a little bit of momentum is that now they're going to take more chances. They're going to cast their nets farther out, right? Of course. They're going to get your wits about you. Yeah. It's amazing what happens when you have some money in the bank, how much more confident you are in decisions, because you know you can take that chance. Right. This grinds my gears so much because, like you said, people like to make things more complicated than it really is. If you want to get ahead, just do something to get ahead. Do something. Like, you have 24 hours. If you're only working 8 hours of that, let's say you want to sleep 8 hours, there's another 8 hours to do more work. Absolutely. And if you want to chill for 2 hours, maybe take a nap
There's still 6 hours. Then you get to sleep another 8 hours. That's one day.
Yeah.
And then you have a full 48 hours at the end of it to work again or do whatever you want. And it's like people just complain. They don't
I know
see
why
it.
it is though. You know,
It
when I
drives
look
me
at
nuts.
it, I can say why. Because most people know what to do, but they don't know what they don't do what they know. Right.
The common sense is very uncommon.
Yeah, and the thing you talked about earlier is the action, the ability. In my opinion, the ability to be able to act is a fucking skill of itself, right? Because so many people think about this stuff that I'm talking about right now. You've heard something super powerful, and you just listen to it and say, oh, fuck, that was super powerful. Yeah. And you just fucking go back and do what you were doing afterwards, after you listen to that crazy information, right?
Yeah.
So I realized, why is that? And I've studied quite a bit. I realized information without emotion is not retained. Sure. It's not retained, right? Like if you're just laying in bed super tight and you're reading a book and your eyes are half open, you're not going to retain anything. Then you're upbeat, your energy is super high, and you're in a great state of mind reading or listening to something. Mm-hmm. And besides the fact that information isn't, it's not an opinion, it's a fact that it's not retained without emotion being attached to it, is I think a lot of people just don't know why. So it's like, yeah, I do have that extra day or 2 days during the week to go get another job or try to figure out to create another source of income. But why? I don't really, I kind of want it, but I don't, like, why do I want to do it? Like, I know my whys. I know, I like you said, writing down your goals, my process of every morning that I wake up, jump in a cold shower, work out, read and study, meditate, and then I write down everything I want to get accomplished for that day specifically. Yeah. And then I write down why do I want to accomplish those things. So I fill myself with why, emotional reasons, why I want to achieve those goals. And then I write down a plan. These are the things I'm going to do. Not that I know what I want, why I want those things, which is the most important part. Because I talked about this earlier. I was like, what do you do when you want to quit? I feel like if you fill up yourself every day with whys, you're doing what you're doing. Why are you here on this planet Earth, right? The whys are what's going to get you through the hard parts. So I think most people don't succeed because they don't even know what the fuck their whys are. Sure. They have no idea. Hey, what are your whys of being alive? Most people are like, oh, I don't know. And I'm a big believer in that too, writing down your goals, being specific as possible about what it is that you're trying to get accomplished and why. Why do you want that? Like, yeah, I want to be a billionaire, right? Why the fuck do you want to be a billionaire when you can, for example, be happy and do all the things you want to do at 100 million, right? Why being a billionaire? To me, I want to get to that mental state of what a billionaire thinks like, not so much the money, right? I want to become that person. It's a different human being who's a billionaire, who's just a millionaire. Total different universes, right? Yeah. Knowing why you want it and then having an actual plan to do it. I think it kind of relates into like what you're saying of like so many people like, oh yeah, man, they listen to it, but they don't take advantage of the time. I don't think they're filled up with their whys or why they're doing it. I'm so intense about it because I know my whys. Like I want to give my mother a life she can never experience. She's never experienced, right? That's a big why for me. Like reaching my potential. What the fuck can I actually do, dude? If I'm going to be alive for a certain period of time, I want to know everything I can accomplish in my abilities, right? I'm afraid. Like I'm about to turn 23 in a couple of days. That kind of makes me feel anxious. Dude, shit, it was just like yesterday I was 18 sitting in my fucking car talking to you about my breakup in high school, right? So it's like, do you agree with the same thing too with the whys?
Well, the whys to me are values. So we talk about values, and it's the same thing. You could call it why or you could call it your values, If you want to change your values. And, if you want to change, write down your values or change your whys, why you're doing things. Of course. Same principle, same thing. Yeah. And, when you see people, if we're talking about like the financial part of things and, their values, if they're in debt and they're miserable, like, and they don't have money, then their values haven't changed. Yeah. They're not fed up yet. If you want to change something in your life, you have to be fed up.
I was about to say, don't you think that dissatisfaction and that debt and whatever's going on in their life, that's not a strong enough reason to go ahead and do more? Because to me, it's because my mentality is different than them, right? I can't relate. I really can't. But if that was me, that'd be like career and emotional and like just suicide. Like I couldn't deal. I don't know what I would do. So I'm curious as to like why that's not enough of a reason for somebody to go ahead and do more for themselves. Because you made a conscious decision immediately. Like you said, I didn't have Wi-Fi. I didn't care. I went to the first place that had Wi-Fi, and I went to every single interview that I could, and I applied for every application, and I got out of it. But why don't other people do that? Why is that's pain and suffering not enough for them to make a switch?
Everybody has a different bottom, you know, so it could be, you know, that drop may not be enough for them, you know, and so everybody's starting a race at different times, right?
Right.
Like look at the sun, right? It comes up in New York at one time, over here in another. Doesn't mean we're behind, right? So everybody has a different part of like the race that they're running. They're in a different section.
They're a different part of their journey.
They're in a different part of the journey, man. You know, but I think that for people that haven't changed it yet, and I keep going back to this, is their values haven't changed yet. There's something still supporting them or supporting their old value system that is allowing them to stay there. And so unless you're not fed up with your situation or you don't switch your values, then you're not going to change, man. But people change. Do you think
it's even more than values? I think it's more of like an identity shift. I think it's more of that than values and beliefs even, because like if your idea, let's say you want to change your value and you keep saying I'm a smoker. I'm a smoker, right?
You can't identify
like
with
that's
that.
an identity that you have adopted.
Sure.
Say I'm a smoker, or I'm a fitness junkie, or I'm this, or I'm that, or whatever, or I'm a work addict. I think it's a identity shift, in my opinion, if you ever want to, for example, change anything in your life. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go do all these things. I don't think I would focus on that. I would focus on like, who do I need to become in order to act and behave that way, right? Who do I have to become? What's the identity shift that I have to make in my mind in order for me to attract those things and for me to start behaving a certain way?
Don't you think your values are comprised of what you identify as?
For sure. I think an identity would go with your standards, would go with your beliefs, would go with your values. I think it's a mixture of all of them, right? Because people that are fucking successful, I've realized, they have fucking high standards. Oh, yeah. They have high standards of living. I need to be at this level. There's nothing less than that I accept, right? They have certain values. They value family. They value health. They value studying and reading. They value taking time away for themselves to, for example, meditate and practice mindfulness. They value hard work, right? And they have certain beliefs, right? So values are certain things. Standards, in my opinion, is there's the different things what you tolerate, and also their beliefs. Like, what the fuck do you think is possible for you? If I go ask someone in the street, hey, do you believe you can be a billionaire? They may say, yeah, but do they really believe? Are they convinced? I think is a better word, right? Their convictions of things.
And are they taking the action to become that?
Exactly.
You know?
And it goes in your actions too.
Yeah. But, you know, so when I talk about values, what I'm meaning is that, like, say, for instance, we're talking about debt, right? And, you know, we know all those people that, you know, they don't have enough money to ever do anything, or they're always, like, complaining, right?
Yeah.
Their values haven't changed. Like, in order for them to get out of debt, they have to value not being in debt anymore. They have to say, you know what, fuck this. I'm fed up.
Yeah.
I don't care if I deliver pizzas on the weekend. That's what I'm going to do in order to get out of debt. Or that's what I'm going to do in order to have an extra $10,000 in the bank in 4 months, you know? So, you know, they're valuing putting in that work versus sitting at home playing video games.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm talking about with the value changes. And, you know, debt, being poor and being in debt, and I'm talking about general, not specific cases, are kind of a choice, you know, even though you're going to have these times where things happen, like how I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. That wasn't my choice.
No.
It was my choice to get out of it.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And so it's a choice. It's a choice to get out of it. It's a choice to change your values. It's a choice to create a new plan, right? Yeah. To go do something. So it's a choice to say, I'm going to have 2 jobs. I'm going to, you know what, instead, or you have a great job, but you know what, instead of like blowing this money in bars, I'm going to put 15% of my income to my 401k, and then at the end of the year, I'm going to buy an IRA, a Roth IRA, right? You'd be a millionaire in 15 years if you did that every year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? You have that choice. You know what I mean? And that comes with values. That's you're valuing saying, you know what, I want to be a millionaire, so I'm gonna have to make the sacrifices.
Yeah.
My company does a 401k, 15% into my 401k, and at the end of the year, I'm gonna buy a Roth IRA for $5,000. I'm gonna do that every year.
Another thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about this, because it kind of goes into what you just said. Hey, in 15 years you'll be a millionaire. That's a personality trait of someone who thinks long term, right? And I've came across a lot that I realized the people that are really successful to the highest levels are very long-oriented thinkers, and they plan things in long term. They think long term. People that are not so successful, they think in days, weeks, months. A good employee may be thinking about a month. What am I going to do? But what am I going to make by this month?
Yeah.
A lot of people just daily, weekly, kind of day to day. That's how they plan. That's how much vision they have. That's how far they see. A good entrepreneur or someone who's a good businessman may have a goal for a year, 12 months out. And the ones that are at the highest level, right, are thinking 5 to 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have like a specific strategy or a way to adopt a better long-term thinking?
Yeah. So, and you're absolutely right with that. And
Yeah.
seeing the long view just in life in general, you know, everything's like the end game, the long view. But if somebody ever wants to do something, you know, and, you know, we talked about like when we first opened up and we were just pre-discussion, you know, your interest in clothing and different clothing companies, right?
Yeah.
And you identified some of the top people, you know, and, you know, by name and their company. And what you did without, well, I think that you knew, but subconsciously too, is that you were seeing the long game. You went to the goal and you're working yourself backwards.
You reverse engineer that process.
You're working backwards.
Correct.
That's how you see the long view and things, is that you go to where that success is, that goal, that either that person, that company, or where you want to go, and you work yourself backwards. And that's how you see the long view. That's the key to success in climbing a mountain, whether it's corporate, whether it's your own business.
Yeah.
Is go to where you want to go and then work yourself backwards. Because see, what most people do is they start from the bottom and they say, how do I, and they never, man, they're chipping away down here.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to be the CEO of
Chase Bank,
then I'm going to go talk to, I forget the guy's name, but I'm going to
Jamie Dimon.
I'm going to go I'm going to go read everything about Jamie Dimon.
Yeah.
I'm going to research the company. I'm going to find out everything from his favorite food to how he got to there to where he went. Model him, right?
Yeah.
But and how he got there. And so I'm going all the way to the top, and now I'm going to work my way backwards. And if you want to find the way to navigate or see the long view, that's the way.
I love that, man. I love that. I think there's a lot of great principles in business, man. And I kind of want to make sure I keep this tuned too, so people don't lose too much attention when it's too long of a podcast.
Yeah.
I did want to thank you, man. This, to be quite honest, on a selfish level, outside of what people are going to learn from this, I learned a lot.
I learned so much.
I'm
so grateful that this happened.
That. Thank you.
Because as soon as this is done, I'm going to go back and make a lot of adjustments and changes that I see. That I'm thankful. You saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you know, the amount of wisdom that you've gained, and how, you know, I think one thing I really appreciate about you, you're fucking self-aware, dude. You're self-aware of things, you know. That's a big thing that most people aren't, right? And you look at them and they go through bad things and they come out even more fucked up and worse because they're not self-aware. And I don't know what you do that I think a big part is when you sit in the morning and you do gratitude. I think it makes you self-aware. But I want to just appreciate how self-aware you are, how your intelligence and everything you taught me. And you know what I think it really is? It's,
and tell me if I'm wrong, but you have a very good understanding of your ego, but you have an even better understanding of humility.
Absolutely.
And what it's done in your life and your acceptance of it, and wrapping that around how grateful you are of everything. You have a very good leash on your ego, your humility, and your gratefulness.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate both those kind words. And, you know, you're either going to check yourself and find humility, or life will do it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's better to check yourself at the door and make sure that you realize that all these things, all these great opportunities, all these things could change in a split second, man.
So true.
And so if you stay in the moment, not only will success find you financially and, you're in the moment, but just personally, man, be in the moment. And being in the moment here with you guys and talking to you. And I mean, talk about motivation. I mean, here you are, a couple young guys in your 20s, and you're light years ahead of where I was. Light years. At this age, I wouldn't even imagine what you guys are doing. And, so, I think that just, is exciting, and, it gives me hope for this next generation of like what great thinkers there are. I think that your generation sometimes could get a bad rap, they're like, oh, well, lazy. And man, you two guys are truly what this next generation needs to model themselves after is,
Thank you.
That desire to success, man. and looking at that end game. So
I think what you said was so powerful. If you're going to check yourself, or the universe does it. Grant Cardone has something, he says, the marketplace will always discipline the undisciplined.
Absolutely.
The guy that was working at Pizza Hut now is making $700,000 a year doing mortgages. He did not deserve it. He had to go back to that same job. His skill levels and commitment wasn't there for him to stay there. And I just want to thank you, man. Thank you for being a great role model physically. Thank you for being a great role model spiritually, mentally. And you're a very spiritual person, dude.
Absolutely.
I don't think a lot of people don't know that about you, and you don't come off that way. But you're a very spiritual person, and you've been a role model for me since a very young age.
Thank you.
In a lot of ways, dude. And I told you this before, so I do want to thank you, man. Thank you for the time you spent with us. Thank you for who you are, dude. I genuinely appreciate it, and I look at all the things you've gone through, and I'm just trying to pick up information, learn. How can I make sure I don't make those mistakes to get there faster? And,
of course.
And I appreciate that, and I very much appreciate the time you spent with us here. And I couldn't be thankful, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah,
you are a fountain of youth, but more than that, you are a fountain of great information. If you really want to look at somebody that's made it in life, right?
Yeah.
And
I want the viewers to know where they can find you too. Definitely, I want to make sure anyone that watches this.
Yeah, so I have to actually start doing my Instagram page a little bit better.
Just find him at the gym.
Yeah,
that'll be easier.
Any local Orange County gym, you'll probably see me rock into. But yeah, so my Instagram is Maldonado Fitness, which, I was kind of at that start of like the Instagram fitness people. I accumulated, thousands of, I like to call them subscribers. They're not followers, man.
Yeah.
We're not followers. We subscribe to information. We subscribe to information,
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I kind of got off of it, not only was time management, but I felt like I didn't have I was running out of information that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want it to be just about me. If you ever read my captions on my Instagram page, it's all about knowledge, man. If you read them,
I love that.
It's thick with it, wisdom and just straight up things that I've experienced to help in fitness.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually I've been getting some more like photos and videos and stuff. So I'm actually gonna start posting again, but but anybody that ever has a question about anything that we discussed, and I've always answered all my fitness questions, is, just hit me up, man. Hit me up, and, my information's always free. I'm never looking for money. I never sell meal plans. I mean, if you ask me, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So
that's very generous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
At the end of every podcast that we have, I'd like to ask our guests a question. It's always different. Sure. I think the question that I want to ask you, it's more selfishly for me, but if you were to describe yourself to any one man or any one woman, any human, how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as a very grateful person to be living in this time. I think we are the luckiest humans to ever live, that we are in this time of technology and accessibility to information. And I would just describe myself as just a human being that is so grateful for the life that I've lived and the life that hopefully more that I live. And that's really it, man. my identity doesn't lie in the gym. My identity doesn't lie in my financial success. My identity is as a human being, and as somebody that loves other humans.
That's amazing, man.
Thank you, man. I very much appreciate that.
Values, relevancy, gratitude, simplicity.
And most importantly, don't forget momentum.
Momentum.
Yeah, momentum.
Don't ever lose it.
There's not much more you need in life from there.
Not at all, man. Thank you very much for you guys listening. If you guys enjoyed anything, 100%, first of all, follow this man. He's the most genuine person I know. Even though when you look at you, I would say this guy has to be cocky, dude. He's got so much, right? He has to be cocky, but you're just such a humble human being, and I think that's why you are where you are.
Absolutely.
So
undoubtedly.
100% follow him. And you listen to all this information, right? Take one thing. I've always said this to my viewers too. Everything he said, Saman said, I said was good. But take one thing that you're going to take out and apply and try to get a momentum with. One thing, whether it would be diet, whether it would be a principle that you learned through this. Take one thing. One thing and apply it right away and try it for 3 months. And don't give up until you're done with that 3 months. And see how it would change your life. And if anything you heard was valuable here, subscribe to my channel and pass this information on to other people. So I want to kind of cut this short. And we had a really good conversation. I'm going to go back and listen to it and pick up a few things I've learned. And I don't know if you have any closing words you want to say.
Follow this man. Support this man. Great podcast. Great host. Great guests. One better than the other. But besides that, I just wanted to say I'm so grateful. Like I said, every time I have a new guest on, I learn something new. And I've never learned and resonated with someone that I've never met so fast, like I have with James. I mean, the gems that you've given, the way that you live your life is such a prime example of how I would like to live my life and what I'm striving towards. And it makes me feel good knowing that there's people out there with the same values that have done it, and you're a living example of how you can make it in this world, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what you've been through, what you've gone through. You've stuck to your roots. You've stuck to a few beliefs, and they've taken you this far. And I'm excited to finding out where you are in another 20, 30, 40 years, because I'm sure we're going to sit back and have a conversation, and it's going to be a much different but still positive dynamic. Yeah. With that being said, you can wrap this up. This is your podcast.
That's all I'm going to say. Follow this man. Take one thing you learned from this. Just seriously. Because so many times you listen to information, and then after you're done listening to it, like, oh, that was some fucking powerful shit. It's like entertainment. Don't take this shit as an entertainment, dude.
Right.
If you listen to anything, take one thing that you're going to say, okay, if I take one principle, one thing that I've learned, and if I work on this one thing, not 2, 3, 4 things, that's too overwhelming. One thing that you're going to create a new habit and a pattern in your brain, and do that for 100 days. Just find out one thing through this whole podcast and do that, because that's the only way anything we just talked about will become valuable to you. And that's all I'm going to say.
There you go.
Thank you for the time, and we'll see you guys next.